Chapter 140. The Scarlet Flame Sword is in an ancient castle. I hid the Scarlet Flame Sword there. With my strength, I'm still unable to use the Scarlet Flame Sword, so I hid it in an ancient castle. I'll take it when I can use it in the future. Mu Yuanhua was stunned for a moment before he hastily replied. Seeing Feng Huoya being easily killed by Chu Fengmian, Mu Yuanhua no longer had any thoughts of resistance. He could only obediently obey. He also understood that if he didn't listen to Chu Fengmian's words, there would only be one outcome: death. Take me to get it, Chu Fengmian coldly shouted. With Mu Yuanhua's strength, he was indeed unable to control a mid-grade Earth-level spiritual artifact. To activate a spiritual artifact, one must consume spiritual energy. The higher the grade of the spiritual artifact, the greater the consumption of spiritual energy. Of course, this was only for ordinary cultivators. For Chu Fengmian, who had divine veins, ordinary spiritual artifacts wouldn't cause any burden to him. However, some truly powerful spiritual artifacts, such as the abundant lush monument and the mysterious star sword, were things that Chu Fengmian couldn't control. He was also clear that if he wanted to truly control these two spiritual artifacts, he would need to be even more powerful. However, the Scarlet Flame Sword was clearly not in this category. As long as Chu Fengmian could obtain it, he could exchange it for the profound Azure Sword. At that time, the power of Chu Fengmian's sword technique would be even more terrifying. Yes, Mu Yuanhua stood up and hurriedly led Chu Fengmian into the desert. After walking for less than 2 hours, a dilapidated ancient castle suddenly appeared in the desert. This dilapidated ancient castle looked like it had been through countless years. In this boundless desert, it was extremely inconspicuous. The Scarlet Flame Sword is inside. Mu Yuanhua walked to the front of the ancient castle and said to Chu Fengmian. In his eyes, it seemed like he was thinking of something. Okay. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient castle and walked inside. However, just as Chu Fengmian was about to take a step into the ancient castle, his figure suddenly moved. He suddenly appeared beside Mu Yuanhua and shot out spiritual energy towards Mu Yuanhua, grabbing him in his hand. He directly threw him into the ancient castle. No! When Mu Yuanhua saw Chu Fengmian's actions, his eyes revealed a bit of fear. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to do this. Bang! Mu Yuanhua's body was thrown into the castle. And in that instant, hiss, hiss, countless sharp swords suddenly filled the ancient castle. Under the countless sharp swords, Mu Yuanhua's body was also pierced full of holes and lost all signs of life. As expected, Chu Fengmian wasn't surprised to see this. Chu Fengmian could already see that there was something wrong with Mu Yuanhua's actions. The Scarlet Flame Sword was a spiritual weapon that Mu Yuanhua was willing to part with from the Candle Flame sect. How could he give it to Chu Fengmian so easily? At the very least, Mu Yuanhua would definitely struggle for a while. It was impossible for him to give up so easily. There was definitely a trap in this. However, this trap could only be eaten by Mu Yuanhua himself. Although you'll definitely die in my hands, I'm afraid that you'll be even more unwilling to die in the trap that you've personally set up. Chu Fengmian coldly smiled and no longer bothered with Mu Yuanhua. He only grabbed Mu Yuanhua's corpse and placed it into a storage pouch. The requirement to complete the mission was Mu Yuanhua's corpse. Chu Fengmian naturally had to bring him back to the academy. However, what Mu Yuanhua said earlier wasn't all a lie. In the ancient castle, Chu Fengmian used his spiritual sense and suddenly discovered a secret chamber. In this secret chamber, there was an extremely sharp sword intent that couldn't be hidden from Chu Fengmian's eyes. As a sword cultivator, he was naturally extremely familiar with it. With a glance, he could tell that it was definitely a spiritual sword that wasn't of a low grade. It could only be one of the 3 divine weapons of the Candle Flame sect, the Scarlet Flame Sword. Along the way, there were many traps in the ancient castle. However, most of them were already detected by Chu Fengmian and the traps were easily broken. Finally, he broke through a stone door and arrived at the secret chamber. The secret chamber was extremely dark. However, with a glance, Chu Fengmian saw countless elixirs piled up at the side. Qi Gathering Elixir. This Qi Gathering Elixir wasn't only owned by the Wusheng Academy. Although it could only be refined by the Wusheng Academy, the Wusheng Academy would also sell it to the other 4 great sects at a fair price. It could be said that it was a common elixir among the 4 great sections. With a glance, Chu Fengmian could see that there were at least 1,000,000 Qi Gathering Elixirs in this secret chamber. I've finally struck it rich. This thought emerged in Chu Fengmian's mind. These Qi Gathering Elixirs were absolutely beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. He never thought that Mu Yuan Hua would actually gather such a huge amount of wealth. However, when he thought about it, Chu Fengmian didn't find it strange. The Sand Bandits controlled by Mu Yuan Hua numbered in the tens of thousands. They would frequently plunder cities and force cities to pay tribute. Most of the wealth was controlled by Mu Yuan Hua alone. This also allowed him to accumulate such a huge amount of wealth. It was no wonder that Mu Yuan Hua was willing to leave the sect and come to the Northwest Desert to be a sand bandit. This wealth and resources were much better than when he was in the sect. However, this wealth was ultimately not his. Even if Mu Yuan Hua didn't die in Chu Fengmian's hands, he would die in the hands of others. After all, what Mu Yuan Hua did was against the natural order. Sooner or later, he would be beheaded. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and countless elixirs were placed into his storage pouch. Among them, the Qi Gathering Elixirs were placed into a separate storage pouch by Chu Fengmian. As for the rest of the healing elixirs and elixirs like the Blood Eruption Elixir, they were placed into another storage pouch by Chu Fengmian. These elixirs were meaningless to Chu Fengmian. It was useless for him to keep them. However, he could go back and sell them in exchange for Qi Gathering Elixirs. Although 1,000,000 Qi Gathering Elixirs seemed like a huge amount, Chu Fengmian knew that it was impossible to feed the ancient war dragon Shadow in his body with this amount of elixirs. At most, it could help Chu Fengmian condense 3 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence. This was already the limit. However, Chu Fengmian had just made a breakthrough and needed to consolidate his realm. For a moment, he didn't want to continue condensing the ancient war dragon's blood essence. He could keep it. After all, this wealth would definitely have many uses in the future. After the elixirs were taken away, the only thing left in the secret chamber was a scarlet spiritual sword. Chapter 141. The Scarlet Flame Sword was entirely red. It was forged with a special type of scarlet flame iron. It was 7 feet long and was an out-and-out heavy sword. The material used to forge the Scarlet Flame Sword is good, but the forging method is too crude. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Scarlet Flame Sword and said in a low voice, "The material used to forge the Scarlet Flame Sword was scarlet flame iron. It was a kind of black iron from outer space. It was born with strong fire spiritual energy and was the perfect material to forge a fire-type spiritual weapon. If the Scarlet Flame Iron was given to a master blacksmith to forge, it might even reach the level of a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Even if it was not enough, it could easily be forged into a top-grade, earth-grade spiritual weapon. However, the grade of the Scarlet Flame Sword was only middle-grade, earth-grade. It was no wonder that Chu Fengmian felt that the forging method of the Scarlet Flame Sword was too crude. It could even be said that it was a waste of a heavenly treasure. There were 7 lines carved on it, but Chu Fengmian felt that the 7 lines were also crude. If it was properly forged, the power of the Scarlet Flame Sword might be several times more powerful than it was now. Although this spiritual weapon has already been finalized and it's impossible to refine it again, the array on it can still be redrawn." Chu Fengmian glanced at the Scarlet Flame Sword and whispered to himself. He suddenly walked over and picked up the Scarlet Flame Sword. The moment Chu Fengmian picked up the Scarlet Flame Sword, a flame suddenly emerged and burned Chu Fengmian's hand. The Scarlet Flame Sword already had a spirit. It could only be controlled by someone who conquered it and became its master. "It's just a spiritual weapon. You want to resist me?" Chu Fengmian frowned. All the spiritual energy in his body burst out. Suddenly, endless dragon power filled Chu Fengmian's body. Dragon power was an extremely domineering pressure. The Scarlet Flame Sword felt Chu Fengmian's dragon power and retreated a little. How could a spiritual weapon dare to resist the majesty of an ancient war dragon? The flame on its body was immediately extinguished, and it was under Chu Fengmian's control. Break! Chu Fengmian roared, and a surge of spiritual energy rushed towards the scarlet flame sword. The scarlet flame sword wanted to resist, but in front of Chu Fengmian's dragon power, it could only obediently give up. He allowed Chu Fengmian's spiritual power to break all 7 patterns on the scarlet flame sword. I wonder how many lines I can inscribe with my current strength. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself in his heart. In his previous life, he had been a grandmaster alchemist. Chu Fengmian had also learned how to carve lines. At that time, Chu Fengmian didn't have any spiritual power. He could use the power of the pill furnace to refine pills, but he couldn't carve the lines. It could be said that this was Chu Fengmian's first time carving lines with his own hands. Even Chu Fengmian himself didn't know what kind of effect it would produce. Carve all the power veins. The heavy sword has no edge, but the power must be strong. Unlike light swords that relied on techniques to fight, heavy swords didn't require much technique when swinging. Instead, it was purely a collision of strength. To use absolute strength to suppress the enemy, the heavy sword's power must be strong. Normally, when carving lines on a spiritual weapon, one would choose to carve lines that would reduce the spiritual power consumption of the spiritual weapon. This would allow the user to reduce the consumption of spiritual power. However, this would also reduce the number of lines that would be carved. For example, an earth-level spiritual weapon could only carve 9 lines at the end of the day. This way, a portion of the weapon's power would be lost. However, this was still extremely important to countless spirit masters. However, to Chu Fengmian, it was meaningless. He had the holy pulse, and his spiritual power was endless. The lines that reduced the consumption of spiritual power were meaningless to Chu Fengmian. What he wanted to carve now were all power veins. This would make the scarlet flame sword's power even more powerful. Chu Fengmian silently muttered in his heart. A wave of spiritual power separated and condensed into lines in front of Chu Fengmian. It moved according to Chu Fengmian's thoughts. These 3 runes were aimed at the scarlet flame sword. Hiss! They were forcefully carved onto the scarlet flame sword. With the addition of the 3 lines, Chu Fengmian immediately felt that the power of the scarlet flame sword in his hand was definitely stronger by 50% compared to before. The carving of the first 3 lines was extremely easy. This made Chu Fengmian's heart slowly gain some confidence. Continue. How could 3 lines be enough to satisfy Chu Fengmian? Chu Fengmian's sword must be extremely powerful. Only then would it be worthy of him. Condense. A wave of spiritual power slowly floated out and condensed into 3 lines. These 3 lines were all lines that increased the power of the sword. Once again, they rushed towards the scarlet flame sword and struck it. Hiss! Hiss! This time, the scarlet flame sword was starting to show signs of resistance. If one did not possess absolute skill and sufficient strength, the scarlet flame sword would instantly suffer a backlash when a rune was inserted into it. Carve it for me, Chu Fengmian roared. The spiritual power in his body completely exploded. The 3 lines were tightly pressed onto the scarlet flame, sword by a wave of spiritual power. Soon, Chu Fengmian saw it. On the scarlet flame sword, another 3 runes had been carved out. 6 lines had been carved. The current power of the scarlet flame sword was already much stronger than before Chu Fengmian started practicing it again. Although the previous scarlet flame sword had 7 lines, in fact, the lines were extremely complicated. However, the current scarlet flame sword had 6 lines, all of which were used to increase the power of the sword. Therefore, in terms of power, it was a bit stronger than the previous scarlet flame sword. Perhaps only Chu Fengmian alone could endure such refinement. If an ordinary martial artist were to use this scarlet flame sword, they would only be able to make a few strikes before their spirit power would be exhausted. 6 lines. The power of the scarlet flame sword was already considered good. However, this was far from enough to satisfy Chu Fengmian. What Chu Fengmian wanted to carve was a total of 9 lines. When the 9 lines were carved at the same time, the The power that was activated by each other would definitely be twice as strong as the 6 lines. Continue. Condense. Another 3 runes condensed in the air. This time, 3 runes condensed in the air. Seal. Chu Fengmian's mind moved. The 3 lines were once again carved on the scarlet flame sword. Blood as the seal. Battle dragon as the sword. The moment the 3 lines were formed, Chu Fengmian immediately cut his finger with the edge of the sword. A drop of golden blood dripped onto the scarlet flame sword. Immediately, the 3 lines were carved on the sword. Chapter 142. The sacrificial sword art had been passed down in the 9 regions, but it was an extremely mysterious thing to most people. In the eyes of the public, sacrificing blood to the sword was a demonic method. However, the sacrificial sword art was the most important part of the orthodox ancient sword forging art. Sacrificing blood to the sword was a sacrifice to the gods of the heavens. The higher the grade of the blood sacrificed to the sword, the better the effect. The more noble the blood, the better the effect of the sacrifice. However, how could the noble blood be compared to the ancient war dragon? A drop of Chu Fengmian's blood essence was equivalent to a drop of the ancient war dragon's blood essence. After refining the scarlet flame sword, the edge of the scarlet flame sword became much sharper. Chu Fengmian picked up the scarlet flame sword and waved it. The flame within the sword turned into a golden dragon flame. Although the grade of the scarlet flame sword has been fixed and cannot be reforged, with the 9 power lines and the dragon flame of the sacrificial sword, the power of the scarlet flame sword is not inferior to many top-grade Earth-level spiritual weapons. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. It was his first time refining a weapon, and it was at such a level. Fortunately, the scarlet flame sword was made of good materials, so it could withstand a refining. Otherwise, if it was the scarlet flame sword in Chu Fengmian's hand, the scarlet flame sword might have been burned down immediately. The power of the sacrificial sword art depended on whether the spiritual weapon could withstand it or not. Finally, I have a heavy sword. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed when he saw the scarlet flame sword. As the former number 1 swordsman, he also had an understanding of the heavy sword. Compared to the light sword technique, he preferred the overbearing heavy sword. The heavy sword Tao was the Tao of Tyrant. It was so powerful that it made people submit to it. Let's go. It's time to return to the academy. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. He understood that it was time to go back. His figure moved, passing through the desert and flying towards the direction of the military camp. The army of the Pingsha king had now eliminated the sand bandits and won a great victory. Without Mu Yuanhua's support, the sand bandits were just a mob. How could they be a match for a real army? When Chu Fengmian returned to the barracks, he saw the soldiers holding the heads of the sand bandits one by one and counting their battle merits. The military exploits of the victorious martial country were determined by the number of people killed. These sand bandits had committed countless crimes. Hence, the current monarch of the victorious martial country gave the order to kill all the sand bandits on the spot. The heads could be used to collect medicinal pills. That was why these soldiers came back with heads. Chu Fengmian saw that a few of the stronger soldiers had more than a dozen heads under their hands. Chu Fengmian passed through the crowd and entered the tent of the Pingsha king. Who is it? As soon as Chu Fengmian appeared, many martial warriors shouted. When they saw Fengmian's appearance clearly, all of their faces were filled with joy. Young Master Chu. Young Master Chu is back. The middle-aged men all shouted happily. They watched as Chu Fengmian chased after Mu Yuanhua, but didn't return for a long time. Each and every one of them was extremely worried in their hearts. Now that Chu Fengmian had returned, their faces were filled with excitement. Young Master Chu, you're finally back. If you didn't come, this king wouldn't know how to explain it to the victorious martial academy. The Pingsha king also laughed. Seeing Chu Fengmian return, his face was filled with joy. How's that demon? Bang! Chu Fengmian didn't say much. He opened a storage pouch and released Mu Yuanhua's body. Although this body was riddled with holes, Mu Yuanhua's unique appearance could still be seen at a glance. As expected, it's that demon. He's finally dead. The Northwest Barren Lands can finally be at peace. The Pingsha king couldn't help but laugh when he saw Mu Yuanhua's corpse. Mu Yuanhua, had always been a great scourge of the Northwest Barren Lands. Now that he was finally dead, the problem of the sand bandits could finally be solved. Young Master Chu is indeed brave. This king will remember this favor. If young Master Chu needs this king's help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. It's my duty. Your Highness, you don't have to do this. Hearing the Pingsha King's words, Chu Fengyan understood that the Pingsha King was trying to rope him in. He didn't bat an eyelid and ignored it. He, Chu Fengyan, had lived a free and unfettered life. He had never been controlled by others. Naturally, he wouldn't be roped in by others. If there's nothing else, this Chu will return to the academy first. There's not much time left. This Chu must return to the academy to give an account. Chu Fengyan opened his mouth and directly walked out. He rode on the black-scaled horse king and left. This Chu Fengyan is truly a genius. I'm afraid that he might be comparable to Zhiling Tian. However, such a genius is extremely difficult to rope in. The Pingsha King muttered to himself. Originally, he was somewhat disdainful of the rumors about Chu Fengyan. He thought that there was no one in Wusheng country who could be compared to Zhiling Tian. However, looking at it now, Chu Fengyan was even more monstrous than the rumors. He was even more monstrous than Zhiling Tian. Unfortunately, his intention to rope Chu Fengyan was seen through. After Chu Fengyan left, he understood Chu Fengyan's attitude. Dragons do not coexist with snakes. With Chu Fengyan's character, it was impossible for him to join any forces. The black-scaled horse king galloped all the way. 3 days later, Chu Fengyan returned to the academy. This time, Chu Fengyan only used a week's time. It was much faster than the 1 month that Xianbei Saint had set for him. The mission hall was the place in Wusheng Academy that was responsible for accepting and completing missions. Although Chu Fengyan's mission was accepted by Xianbei Saint, if Chu Fengyan wanted to receive the reward, he had to complete the mission in the mission hall. The mission hall could be said to be the most bustling place in Wusheng Academy. Countless disciples walked through it to receive missions. The most direct and simple way to earn contribution points was to complete missions. For inner disciples, there might be other methods, but for outer disciples, it was almost the only method. That person, who is he? What an unfamiliar inner disciple. Is he a newcomer in this year's batch? When some outer disciples saw Chu Fengyan, their eyes were filled with shock. They all looked over at him. Among the outer court disciples, almost all of the inner court disciples were considered to be high and mighty figures. It was extremely difficult for 3 inner disciples in Wusheng Academy to be promoted in a year. Therefore, most of the inner disciples knew about them. Chapter 143. Are all of you immersing yourselves in cultivation? How come you don't even know him? Some of the outer sect disciples who recognized Chu Fengyan grumbled to the outer sect disciples beside them. If one didn't know Chu Fengyan in Wusheng Academy, they would be ignorant. He's this year's newcomer king. How come you don't recognize him? This year's newcomer king? Could it be Chu Fengyan? Hearing the outer disciples' words, many people finally realized who Chu Fengyan was. In the past, the newcomer king of Wusheng Academy wasn't very famous. No matter how strong a newcomer was, they could only start from the bottom when they entered the inner sect. However, this year's newcomer king was completely different. He broke the 3 records of Ling Tian, reached the 70th level of Tong Tian Path, and was accepted as a disciple by Saint Xianbei. Any one of these 3 points was enough for Chu Fengyan to stand proudly in Wusheng Academy. Mission Hall. Chu Fengyan actually came to the mission hall. What mission did he take? I don't think I've seen him in the mission hall. Looking at Chu Fengyan, many martial artists were curious. As the most eye-catching newcomer in Wusheng Academy, his every move was being watched by countless disciples. Chu Fengyan walked into the mission hall. With a glance, he saw numerous jade talismans on one of the walls. Every jade talisman represented a mission. Different stars were engraved on the jade talismans, representing the difficulty of the mission. Under the jade talismans, there were countless jade slips. The missions of Wusheng Academy didn't limit the number of people who could take them, but only one person could complete them. As for the others, it was very likely that they would be very busy. However, this was the rule of Wusheng Academy. Survival of the fittest. Only the strong could survive in Wuxing Academy. A 3-star intermediate mission. Chu Fengmian actually completed a 3-star intermediate mission. Seeing Chu Fengmian take one of the jade talismans, many people around were surprised. A 3-star intermediate mission meant that only martial artists above the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm could complete it. Chu Fengmian's current 7th level of the body refining realm was enough to complete a 3-star intermediate mission. It's a mission from the Sand Bandits of the Northwest Desert. What? It's actually a mission from a traitor of the Candle Flame clan. Out of curiosity, some of the disciples leaned over to take a look at the jade slip below and exclaimed in shock. I heard that even senior brother Feng, one of the top 10 inner disciples, failed to complete this mission. Chu Fengmian actually completed this mission. Mu Yuanhua's matter had spread like wildfire in the Academy of Wuxing. This mission was something that no one was willing to take on. Mu Yuanhua's strength was already extremely powerful. In addition to his demonic skills, he had a cautious personality. In the past, the top 10 inner disciples had gone to search for a single person, but all of them had returned empty-handed. Therefore, even if this mission had a lot of contribution points, most people wouldn't consider it. Who would have thought that it would actually be completed today? I'm here to submit this mission. Chu Fengmian walked to a counter and spoke to one of the mission hall elders. In the mission hall, the outer sect elders were the ones who carried out all the tasks, not the disciples. This was also to ensure the fairness of the mission hall. Oh, what mission? The mission hall elder had a head of white hair and looked extremely old. His strength was around the 2nd level of the Divine Sea Realm. His aptitude wasn't high, so he could only get the position of an outer sect elder. However, he was still an outer sect elder after all. He looked down on the disciples. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, he only said a few words in a low voice. Give me the jade slip. Chu Fengmian moved his hand and threw the jade slip over. The mission hall elder took the jade slip and injected some spiritual energy into it. Suddenly, his expression changed. You completed this mission? The mission hall elder's voice was almost a shout. Immediately, many disciples in the mission hall were attracted. What kind of mission is it? Why is the mission hall elder so surprised? Some warriors gathered around. When they saw the jade slip that Chu Fengmian handed over, their expressions weren't any better than the mission hall elders. Of course. Chu Fengmian softly nodded. Then he took out a storage pouch and took it out. Mu Yuanhua's body suddenly appeared in the mission hall. It's actually that traitor. This fellow actually has scales all over his body. He must have really turned into a demon. How could such a demon be killed by him today? Everyone looked at Chu Fengmian. Most of them had disbelief in their eyes. When Mu Yuanhua betrayed the Candle Flame sect, his strength was already at the 3rd level of the Divine Sea Realm. Now that he was possessed, his strength was even stronger than before. Chu Fengmian's cultivation was only at the 7th level of the body refining realm. How could he possibly defeat Mu Yuanhua? Could it be that this kid hit the jackpot and happened to encounter the traitor who was heavily injured, so he killed him? How is that possible? That traitor is extremely cunning. Even senior brother Feng couldn't find him after searching for a month. How could he be heavily injured? Could it be that someone helped this kid and allowed him to complete this mission? It's possible. You have to think about this kid's master. You mean? The Shinbei Saint? Could it be that the Shinbei Saint helped this kid to complete this mission? That's impossible. But it's possible that the Shinbei Saint saw that the demon was doing all kinds of evil. So he killed the demon, and the kid obtained the corpse to exchange for contribution points. Everyone was discussing, but no one believed that Mu Yuanhua was really killed by Chu Fengmian. Mu Yuanhua, who even the top 10 inner disciples of the Martial Victory Academy couldn't kill, was killed by Chu Fengmian. No one dared to believe this, and they were madly guessing the reason behind it. Hearing these discussions, Chu Fengmian's expression was only cold. Naturally, Chu Fengmian didn't care about these rumors. What he needed now was to complete this mission. It's really Mu Yuanhua's body. The mission hall elder looked at Mu Yuanhua's body and said softly. Those words already proved one thing. That was, Mu Yuanhua had indeed died. The mission had indeed been completed. Since the elder has confirmed it, Then give me the reward for this mission. Chu Fengmian didn't waste any more words. He took out his identity badge and handed it over to the Mission Hall Elder. Wait. The Mission Hall Elder suddenly raised his head. His eyes flickered and a sly smile appeared on his face. Chapter 144. What spiritual weapon? Hearing the Elder's words, Chu Fengmian frowned and asked. When he accepted this mission, there was no mention of any spiritual weapon. In the Jade Slip, there was no mention of any spiritual weapon. It only said to bring back Mu Yuanhua's body. Don't play dumb. I'm talking about the spiritual weapon on Mu Yuanhua's body. The Mission Hall Elder looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. This demon betrayed the Candle Flame sect for a spiritual weapon. Without that spiritual weapon, you won't be considered to have completed this mission. At most, you'll be given half of the contribution points. What? Hearing the Elder's words, Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly turned cold. Only half of the contribution points? This Elder was obviously looking for trouble. The mission had not mentioned anything about spirit weapons. Hence, the Mission Hall Elder was just trying to find fault with them. There's no mention of this in the mission. Chu Fengmian frowned and said. This Elder was looking for trouble for no reason, which confused him. After all, this Elder was also an outer sect Elder. Chu Fengmian didn't want to have a conflict with him for no reason. Oh, is that so? That was a moment of carelessness on this old man's part. Now, this old man will add another one. The Elder looked at Chu Fengmian with a faint smile. Half of the reward is 1,000 contribution points. Are you going to hand in this mission? No, Chu Fengmian said coldly. 1,000 contribution points was nothing to Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian had the wealth of 1,000,000 energy-gathering pills, he didn't really need contribution points. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't take this loss. If he did, he would be targeted everywhere in the Wusheng Academy. Chu Fengmian knew that kind people would be bullied. Today, Chu Fengmian had to get 2,000 contribution points, no less. Elder, don't go too far, Chu Fengmian said with a cold tone. Chu Fengmian didn't want to make a move, but if this Elder was too overbearing, Chu Fengmian didn't mind. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, defeating a martial artist in the second tier of the Divine Sea realm was as easy as crushing an ant. Too much. I'm an Elder of the Mission Hall. I can directly change most of the missions here. You're still not satisfied with 1,000 contribution points? The Elder from the Mission Hall mocked. Since that's the case, you can keep this mission for 3 to 5 years. Maybe I'll be in a good mood and give you a few hundred more contribution points. However, you have to understand that you can only accept one mission at a time. If you don't hand it in, you can forget about accepting another mission for the next 3 to 5 years. The words of the Mission Hall Elder were extremely sinister. Carrying out missions was one of the fastest ways to earn contribution points. Even some of the inner sect experts would take on missions. Naturally, Chu Fengmian would do so when he needed contribution points. If he didn't allow Chu Fengmian to accept missions for 3 to 5 years, it would definitely be a painful blow to Chu Fengmian. He was forcing Chu Fengmian to lower his head today. How dare you come to the Mission Hall after offending Family Chu? It seems that this kid is going to be taught a lesson today. Doesn't he know that the Mission Hall is Family Chu's territory? This kid has been arrogant since he came to the academy. First, he offended Family Chu, the Chung family, the Crown Prince, and the law enforcement team. However, he doesn't understand how much influence these forces have in the Martial Victory Academy. His days of suffering are still to come. This is just a prelude. Some of the onlookers were not surprised by the Mission Hall Elder's words. Instead, they sneered. Many of them even spoke in a mocking tone. Family Chu. Chu Fengmian suddenly understood when he heard the discussion. This Mission Hall Elder was indeed looking for trouble. The Mission Hall was a place that was managed by Family Chu. This Mission Hall Elder was also an Elder who was on good terms with Family Chu. Chu Fengmian had once defeated Chu Beige during the ARC assessment, causing Chu Beige to be unable to take the assessment. Chu Fengmian had already formed a grudge with Family Chu. Now, this Mission Hall Elder wanted to make things difficult for Chu Fengmian in order to curry favor with Family Chu. Since there was already a grudge between them, Chu Fengmian did not have to worry about anything. Elder, are you sure you want to make things difficult for me? Chu Fengmian frowned. Coldness flashed in his eyes. The spiritual power in his body had already begun to circulate. A powerful pressure rushed toward the mission hall elder. This was the last chance he would give the mission hall elder. Make things difficult? Ha! So what if this old man wants to make things difficult for you? You're just an inner sect disciple. What can you do? The mission hall elder laughed. This old man knows that your strength is amazing. However, this is the mission hall. According to the sect rules, anyone who dares to make a move in the mission hall will be imprisoned for 10 years. If you dare to make a move, you can spend the next 10 years in the Blackwater region. This old man is right here. Let's see if you dare to hit me. The mission hall elder laughed arrogantly when he saw the spiritual power erupting from Chu Fengmian's body. Slap! His laughter did not last long as a crisp sound could be heard all of a sudden. A clear slap mark could be seen on the mission hall elder's face. So what if I hit you? Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of mockery. It was as if he was laughing at the mission hall elder's stupidity. So what if he did beat him up today? Chu Fengmian had never cared about the sect rules of Wuxing Academy. Ever since the Crown Prince dared to make a move on him during the exam, Chu Fengmian no longer believed in the sect rules. The sect rules of Wuxing Academy were only effective against powerless trash. Take the Crown Prince, for example. He had never cared about the sect rules. He had attacked Chu Fengmian and forced the Hall Master to retreat. He had not received any punishment. Today, Chu Fengmian would not care about the so-called sect rules of Wuxing Academy. You dare to hit me? The mission hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian and said in a daze. This slap had definitely made him a little dumbfounded. As the mission hall elder, he had always made things difficult for others. No one dared to take revenge because of his identity as the mission hall elder. No one dared to make a move on him. However, Chu Fengmian showed no mercy today. He had slapped him. What? One slap is not enough? Chu Fengmian's mouth moved. Slap! He raised his hand once again and slapped the mission hall elder's face. Chapter 145. He really slapped him. How lawless. Chu Fengmian is really lawless. Are the rules of the academy not intimidating him at all? Well done. Some of the disciples who had been detained by the mission hall elder couldn't help but shout in satisfaction. The mission hall elder had used his status to bully the disciples who had bad relationships with their family Chu. However, due to his status, no one dared to do anything to him. Chu Fengmian's actions had definitely fulfilled their wishes. Countless people originally thought that Chu Fengmian would definitely choose to endure this time, but the result was beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone understood that the person in front of them wasn't a disciple of the Martial Victory Academy. Other disciples of the Martial Victory Academy wouldn't dare to go against the mission hall elder. After all, how could a disciple go against an elder? However, Chu Fengmian was different. Chu Fengmian would never allow anyone to bully him. Chu Fengmian had even dared to stab Ling Tian with his sword. Chu Fengmian had hit the mission hall elder without any nonsense. Do you still want me to continue? Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on the mission hall elder as he said coldly, Transfer 2,000 contribution points to me. Chu Fengmian, you're really courting death. The two slaps came before the mission hall elder could react. Ever since he became the mission hall elder, he had never been slapped before. Even the top 10 inner disciples had always been respectful to him, but Chu Fengmian dared to slap him. Chu Fengmian slapped his face in front of everyone. Just you wait. You'll definitely be imprisoned in the Blackwater region. You'll be sent to the endless sea of demonic beasts. The mission hall elder shouted angrily. I don't know if I'll be imprisoned in the Blackwater region, but if you don't give me a satisfactory explanation today, don't think you'll have an easy time this time. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. The mission hall elder was about to die, but he still dared to threaten him. What Chu Fengmian hated the most was being threatened by others. This mission hall elder had repeatedly provoked Chu Fengmian's bad luck. Come here. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and a burst of spiritual energy suddenly erupted, grabbing at the mission hall elder. Overlapping feet fist. When the mission hall elder saw Chu Fengmian's attack, he also threw out a punch, preparing to block it. However, his strength was not on the same level as Chu Fengmian's. Mu Yuanhua, who was in the 4th tier of the Spirit Sea realm, was easily killed by Chu Fengmian. This elder of the mission palace was nothing. "Get over here!" Chu Fengmian roared and waved his hand again. The mission hall elder's punch was easily broken by Chu Fengmian. His body was sucked into Chu Fengmian's hand by Chu Fengmian's spiritual power. He was pulled in front of Chu Fengmian without any resistance. "Chu Fengmian, what are you doing?" The mission hall elder was already filled with regret. Why did he provoke Chu Fengmian for no reason? Chu Fengmian even dared to offend the Chung family, Family Chu, and the Crown Prince. He was just an insignificant mission hall elder. How could Chu Fengmian be afraid of him? However, it was impossible for him to open his mouth and beg for mercy now. He had been beaten up so miserably by Chu Fengmian in front of so many people. If he begged for mercy now, he would never be able to raise his head again in the Martial Victory Academy. "Kneel on the ground and beg for mercy now. I can still give you a chance." Chu Fengmian's stern voice suddenly sounded. "What?" The mission hall elder's mind went blank. He thought that no matter how excessive Chu Fengmian was, there would be a limit and he would ask for peace. Unfortunately, he was wrong. Chu Fengmian never showed mercy to his opponents. In the Academy of Wuxing, Chu Fengmian had no way to kill the mission hall elder. However, Chu Fengmian had 10,000 ways to humiliate him. I said, "Kneel." Every word of Chu Fengmian's contained a huge amount of spiritual power. The moment he said it, it was filled with supreme majesty. Dragon's aura, the real dragon's aura. Under the dragon's might, the mission hall elder didn't even have the will to resist. His knees went soft, and he knelt directly in front of Chu Fengmian. It was a great humiliation. As an outer sect elder, he had a distinguished status. Countless disciples would greet and salute him when they saw him. However, he was defeated by a newcomer. In the hands of a newcomer, he didn't even have the ability to resist and was defeated. He was forced to kneel on the ground in front of everyone. This kind of humiliation made him spit out a mouthful of blood. He was almost angered to death. What? The mission hall elder really knelt under Chu Fengmian's words. Is he crazy? Does Chu Fengmian have demonic power? How can it be? The onlookers couldn't understand. Chu Fengmian didn't even make a move. His words alone were enough to make the mission hall elder kneel on the ground. This mission hall elder, not to mention that he was just an outer sect elder of the Academy of Wuxing, even with his strength, a warrior in the second tier of the Divine Sea realm, he could be considered a powerhouse. In the entire Wuxing nation, he could be considered a powerhouse. However, he knelt on the ground because of one sentence. The onlookers didn't understand. The only one who really understood was the mission hall elder. Dragon might. The moment the real dragon might pressed on him, the mission hall elder's mind went blank. When he came back to his senses, he was already kneeling on the ground. When he tried to get up, the pressure from his body made him unable to even get up. Since you're willing to kneel, there is no need to hurry. Chu Fengmian's face revealed a smile. This smile, in the eyes of the mission hall elder, was an extremely chilling smile. "Little bastard, just you wait. You will regret this. This is the Academy of Wuxing. It is not a place where you can cover the sky with one hand." The mission hall elder roared. This was the Academy of Wuxing. Everything that happened in the mission hall would spread quickly. He believed that when Family Chu's people arrived, it would be the end of Chu Fengmian. "I know that you are waiting for Family Chu's people to come and save you." Chu Fengmian looked at the mission hall elder with a provocative smile. "However, even if Family Chu's people dare to come and save you, I will make them kneel one by one. I will accompany you." "Arrogant Junior, I am Chu Qianjue. Let's see how you can make me kneel." An angry roar suddenly came from outside the mission hall. Two figures broke through the crowd and suddenly arrived. One of the two figures was a middle-aged man. It was Chu Qianjue who had just spoken. The other figure was extremely young. When Chu Fengmian saw this figure, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Chapter 146. It's Chu Qianjue. He's an outstanding member of the previous generation of the family Chu. He's not even 40 years old, yet he's already an outer court elder. I'm afraid that he'll be promoted to an inner court elder in the future. He'll be a mainstay of the family Chu. Some of the onlookers couldn't help but speak out when they heard Chu Qianjue's name. Chu Qianjue was a true family Chu expert. His strength had already reached the 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. His strength could be considered outstanding among the outer court elders. And now, Chu Qianjue was actually here. It seems that Chu Fengmian has finally kicked an iron plate this time. Chu Qianjue is here. He's definitely going to be taught a lesson. I wonder how badly Chu Qianjue will teach him. Chu Qianjue's attacks are extremely ruthless. I'm afraid that brat's going to meet with misfortune today. However, that brat's master is the Xianbei Saint. Chu Qianjue won't dare to kill him. Even if he doesn't kill him, he'll still have to teach him a lesson. The onlookers discussed among themselves. Apart from Chu Qianjue, the other young man didn't attract much attention. Only Chu Fengmian took a few more glances at him. Chu Wanga. He was the one who had provoked Chu Fengmian in the Arc test and was defeated by Chu Fengmian. In the end, he didn't even get to board the Arc. Now, he had actually appeared in the Wu Sheng Academy again. Judging by his current attire, he was actually an inner court disciple. Little bastard, you didn't expect this, did you? Even if you tried to stop me, I still came to the Wu Sheng Academy. Chu Wanga sneered as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Those little tricks of yours are meaningless in front of me. You're just a piece of trash who relies on your family's influence. You're just a defeated opponent. How dare you act so arrogantly? Chu Fengmian glanced at Chu Wanga and spoke with disdain. The reason why Chu Wanga was still in the Wu Sheng Academy was because of his family Chu's influence in the Wu Sheng Academy. Chu Fengmian didn't care about a piece of trash who relied on his family's influence. He didn't even have the interest to continue talking with Chu Wanga. You're the one who spoke just now? Chu Fengmian glanced at Chu Qianjue and revealed a sinister smile on his face. Looks like you want to kneel on the ground like that, old man. Shameless boasting. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Chu Qianjue snorted coldly. His heart was already filled with murderous intent. Chu Fengmian had humiliated the family Chu in front of so many people. If he didn't kill Chu Fengmian, the anger in his heart wouldn't be quelled. Junior, even if your master comes today, you will still die. Chu Qianjue shouted angrily. His voice was filled with killing intent. Master? I alone am enough to deal with all of you. Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully. 5th LV of the Spirit Sea Realm. His strength was even inferior to Feng Huoye, who had consumed the explosive blood pill. Feng Huoye had been casually toyed with by Chu Fengmian. Chu Qianjue was the same. Hurry up and come. I'll give you a chance to attack first. Otherwise, you won't even have a chance to attack. Chu Fengmian's tone was relaxed. When he spoke, it was as if he was talking to an ant. Both of his hands were behind his back, and his attitude was completely relaxed. Arrogance. The only thing that people could think of from Chu Fengmian was incomparable arrogance. If Chu Qianjue hadn't chosen to become an elder, he would be at least one of the top 10 inner disciples by now. How could Chu Fengmian let such a person attack first? This wasn't arrogance anymore. This was a madman. Only a madman would do something like this. Good, very good. It's been a long time since someone dared to challenge the family Chu's dignity like this. Little bastard, today I will use your blood to wash away the dignity of the family Chu. Chu Qianjue's body trembled as he stood up. His face was flushed red. He was an expert at the 5th level of the Spirit Sea Realm, an outer sect elder. How could he be looked down upon by Chu Fengmian, a junior at the 7th level of the body refinement realm? Chu Qianjue had wanted to crush Chu Fengmian to death countless times. Second uncle, let me do it this time. Suddenly, Chu Wanga said from aside, I will kill this kid with my own hands. Oh, hearing Chu Wanga's voice, Chu Qianjue's anger gradually dissipated. He looked at Chu Wanga and nodded. All right, I'll leave this kid's life to you. Hurry up and attack. Don't push each other around. You'll have to kneel there anyway. There's no difference. Chu Fengmian smiled disdainfully. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, the strength of these two people was like ants. It didn't matter who went first. The result would be the same. They would all kneel on the ground like the Mission Palace elder. Little bastard, today I will kill you like killing a dog. Chu Wanga looked at Chu Fengmian. His anger could no longer be contained. Spiritual energy burst out from his body, and he suddenly turned into a purple light shadow. He rushed toward Chu Fengmian and threw a punch. Under this punch, an earthy yellow color actually appeared. Innate earth spirit. This Chu Wanga had broken through to the spirit sea realm. Little bastard, no matter how strong your body is, so what? Now that I've reached the spirit sea realm, it's easy for me to kill you. Chu Wanga laughed loudly. His defeat by Chu Fengmian aroused his fighting spirit. With the help of the family Chu's resources, he stepped into the spirit sea realm in just a few days. He became the first warrior to step into the spirit sea realm among the 4 geniuses. What a powerful punch. Spirit sea realm. This family Chu's Jr. is so terrifying. It seems that the battle between him and Chu Fengmian will determine who is the real newcomer king this year. Seeing Chu Wanga's strength, many people began to notice his existence. A spirit sea realm warrior, and such a young one at that. With such talent, he might not be weaker than Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian's strength was strong, his realm was not high. If his realm was not high, no matter how strong his skills and strength were, in the end, he would not be able to fight against a real powerhouse. Realm was the most important point for a martial artist. Now that Chu Wanga had stepped into the spirit sea realm, in the eyes of the public, he was the one who had the real hope to compete with Chu Fengmian for the title of newcomer king. This battle was the battle for the title of newcomer king. I thought you had something to rely on. You're so confident just by stepping into the spirit sea realm? Chu Fengmian said with a disdainful smile. Chapter 147. Cut the bullsh *T. Let's see if you can take a punch from this young master today. Chu Beige laughed maniacally. He had made ample preparations to deal with Chu Fengmian. Came a fist. Chu Beige threw out a punch. The punch was filled with the aura of a supreme overlord. It's the family Chu's martial technique. Came a fist, an upper profound martial technique. Even some of the experts in the family Chu are not qualified to learn this martial technique. How could a junior use it? The moment the punch was thrown out, Chu Fengmian felt a wave of pressure, as if it was trying to immobilize his body. This was the true overlord's punch. The pressure alone was enough to render an ordinary martial artist unable to resist. However, in front of Chu Fengmian, the pressure was like a child's play. The overlord was only the king of humans. It was nothing in front of the true ancient war dragon. Fight! The ancient war dragon's blood essence boiled in Chu Fengmian's body. Waves of energy surged up. Break! Chu Fengmian threw out a punch. You're courting death. Seeing Chu Fengmian's punch, Chu Beige laughed. He had guessed that with Chu Fengmian's character, he would never retreat. He would face him head-on. With his current realm, he could only use the Kangba fist once. If Chu Fengmian dodged it, his plan would fail. However, Chu Beige believed that with Chu Fengmian's arrogant character, he would never dodge. Chu Fengmian did as he had expected. He did not dodge, but took the punch head-on. Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. Not to mention martial artists of the same realm, even martial artists of a few levels higher would not dare to take the Kangba fist head-on. It seems like Chu Beige has won this battle. Chu Fengmian will never be able to take the punch. Many of the people present shook their heads. With this punch, the winner had been decided. Chu Beige could not be defeated by this punch that was invincible in the same realm. Even Chu Qianjue, who was standing at the side, smiled. As long as Chu Fengmian dared to resist the blue tyrant fist, only death awaited him. There was no other outcome. Murderous intent appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. His feet moved as he charged forward. What does this kid want to do? Does he still think that he has the ability to fight back? Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, everyone present was shocked. In the face of such a terrifying punch, any cultivator would only think of escaping or how to resist. But now, seeing Chu Fengmian's actions, he actually wanted to counterattack Chu Beige. Could it be that Chu Fengmian was really confident that he could withstand this punch? Impossible. Countless onlookers shook their heads. There was no way he could withstand this punch. If the blue tyrant fist, which was invincible in the same realm, was used against a martial artist of a lower realm, once it hit, victory would be assured. What Azure Tyrant Fist? It's just a small, profound, grade martial skill. Invincible and undefeated? Chu Fengmian's mocking voice rang out. It's time for you to see what a true overlord is what true invincibility is. Dragon fights in the wild. Chu Fengmian's figure moved. His punch was aimed at Chu Banj. The moment the punch was thrown, everyone heard a loud and clear roar. Roar. Dragon's roar. Chu Fengmian's punch actually carried a dragon's roar. So what if it's a dragon's roar? The blue tyrant fist is invincible. Its family Chu's invincible fist. Chu Banj was shocked when he heard the dragon's roar, but the next moment he laughed out loud. He believed that his family Chu's martial skill was absolutely invincible. But in the next second, his face was completely frozen. His fist wind was almost instantly shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. At the same time, the remaining spiritual power was almost simultaneously thrown at Chu Banj. Chu Banj's figure was suddenly sent flying a few meters away. Then, the remaining power was actually all pressed on his body. Bang! The sound of someone kneeling on the ground rang out. Chu Banj's figure actually knelt on the ground, right next to the mission hall elder. This kind of control of spiritual power was really frightening to the extreme. The crowd was speechless. They thought that Chu Banj could still challenge Chu Fengmian, but this was the result. The strength of the two sides was not even on the same level. A body-refining realm martial artist was actually toying with a divine sea realm martial artist in the palm of his hand. This scene was so similar to the scene in the Northwest Desert. It was as if Chu Fengmian was the real divine sea realm martial artist, and Chu Banj was the body-refining realm martial artist. Damn it! Chu Qianjue's figure moved almost as soon as he saw Chu Banj kneel down. He clenched his right hand into a fist and almost instantly appeared behind Chu Fengmian, quietly throwing a punch at him. Die, Junior! Chu Qianjue was now in a rage. He would rather launch a sneak attack. Today, he had to kill Chu Fengmian. Otherwise, his family Chu would lose all face. Sneak attack? It seems that you also can't wait to see the two of them kneel down. The moment Chu Qianjue appeared behind Chu Fengmian's faint voice sounded. His punch landed on Chu Fengmian's body, but it only broke a shadow. Chu Fengmian's figure stood to the side and directly grabbed Chu Qianjue. Supreme Dragon's might, kneel down. Chu Fengmian waved his hand. Without any hesitation, a surge of spiritual power burst out. Chu Qianjue felt as if his body weighed 1,000 kilograms. He was simply unable to move. His knees involuntarily bent. Even if he was 10,000 times unwilling, his body was simply unable to withstand Chu Fengmian's power. Little bastard, I'm a member of the family Chu. My status is incomparably noble. If you dare to make me kneel, I would rather die than submit. Chu Qianjue roared angrily. Our family Chu will absolutely not let you off. Even your master, the Xianbei saint, will not be able to protect you. Noble status? What nonsense are you spouting? Kneel down. Chu Fengmian raised his eyebrows. His spiritual power increased by a bit. The sound of Chu Qianjue's ribs breaking could be heard continuously. Under the enormous pressure, Chu Qianjue's ribs were on the verge of breaking. However, Chu Qianjue's body was still standing. He could not kneel. He was a genius of the family Chu. He was currently the cornerstone of the family Chu. In the future, he might be promoted to become an inner court elder. To have him kneel to a new inner court disciple was a humiliation that was much more painful than death. Chapter 148. Kill you. Chu Fengmian smirked when he heard Chu Qianjue shout. Why should I listen to you? Kneel properly. Today, I'll let you kneel here and reflect on your actions. Chu Fengmian laughed. Kill Chu Qianjue? Chu Fengmian wasn't a fool. This was Wu Sheng Academy. Chu Fengmian could make Chu Qianjue kneel, but if he killed him, he would be in big trouble. As long as Chu Fengmian didn't kill anyone, Wu Sheng Academy couldn't do anything to him. For inner disciples, even if they violated the Academy's rules, they wouldn't be punished as long as they didn't kill anyone. Furthermore, to Chu Qianjue, having him kneel in the mission hall right now was even more painful than being killed. Chu Fengmian, do you really want to shed all pretense of cordiality with family Chu? Chu Qianjue said angrily when he heard Chu Fengmian's laughter. Do you think you can act so impudently in Wu Sheng Academy just because your master is the Xianbei saint? Let me tell you, our family Chu also has a saint. If you really shed all pretense of cordiality with our family Chu, even the Xianbei saint won't be able to protect you. Oh, even without my master's help? Aren't you all kneeling here? You're still talking nonsense here? Chu Fengyan said with a disdainful smile. These family Chu's disciples all relied on their family's power to act arrogantly. The world was still a threat. If Chu Fengyan was afraid of the so-called family Chu, he wouldn't have had any conflict with family Chu in the first place. Moreover, there was no need to resolve the grudge between Chu Fengyan and family Chu. Chu Fengyan had kept in mind the fact that the Chu family wanted to kill him. Shed all pretense of cordiality? Don't tell me you don't know about what happened on the deserted island. Since when I've been fighting to the death with family Chu. Chu Fengyan transmitted his voice to Chu Qianjue. No one else heard him. What? It really was you. Chu Qianjue's eyes were filled with shock. The family Chu still hadn't investigated Chu Bei's death on the deserted island. They all believed that Chu Fengyan was the culprit. But now, hearing Chu Fengyan admitted himself was still beyond their expectations. Furthermore, Chu Bei had gone to the island not only to kill Chu Fengyan, but also to get the rich lush steel. Now that Chu Bei had been killed by Chu Fengyan, where was the rich lush steel? You want to deal with me? Naturally, they have to pay the price. Chu Fengyan sneered. Today, all of you should properly kneel here and reflect. If you reflect well, I will release all of you tomorrow. Chu Fengyan looked around and suddenly shouted, Today, I want to see if anyone dares to come and save you. Whoever dares to come will end up like you. These words were simply a blatant threat. However, at that moment, no one dared to look down on Chu Fengyan's words. This was especially true after Chu Qianjue knelt on the ground. Chu Qianjue was actually forced into such a state by a newcomer. He has truly lost all face as an outer court elder. A consciousness was conversing in the surroundings of the mission hall. Naturally, what happened in the mission hall could not be hidden from the countless experts of the Martial Victory Academy. However, at that moment, the crowd all had the mentality of watching a joke. None of them did anything to stop Chu Qianjue. To them, the conflict between Chu Fengyan and family Chu was nothing more than a small quarrel. As long as it did not harm the Academy's interests, no one was willing to interfere. Humph, that Chu Qianjue is too arrogant. Did he really think that Chu Fengyan, who was able to reach the 70th level of the Heavenspan path, was weak? Instead of launching a sneak attack, he was defeated in a single move. Another voice snorted coldly. Earlier, when Chu Qianjue had attacked, he had not even been able to unleash half of his strength. He had been suppressed by Chu Fengyan and Chu Fengyan's dragon's might. With a single move, Chu Qianjue had been defeated. He did not even have the ability to use his full strength. This could be considered Chu Fengyan's good fortune. However, this was how battles between cultivators were. The result was everything. Now, Chu Qianjue had been defeated by Chu Fengyan. He was kneeling on the ground, utterly humiliated. Say, how do you think family Chu will retaliate against Chu Fengyan? Family Chu's two geniuses of the younger generation, Chu Qianjue and Chu Banch, were both defeated by this brat. They're kneeling on the ground in front of the crowd. How could family Chu let such a grudge go? It's not like the family Chu does not have any saints. So what if this brat has the Xianbei saint behind him? The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Having talent is a good thing, but his character is too arrogant. In the end, his character is not something that can be nurtured. A newcomer actually made two of us outer sect elders kneel on the ground. He is truly too arrogant. Let me step in and save Chu Qianjue and Chu Banch. I don't want others to laugh at them. The figure of an old man suddenly appeared. He released a burst of spiritual energy, trying to break the restriction on Chu Qianjue and Chu Banch. Brat, this matter has taught you a lesson. If this continues, it will not do you any good. Today, I will take the two of them away. It will be easier to resolve this matter. The old man said calmly. He waved his hand, wanting to take the two away. Where did this old man come from? Meddling in other people's business. Don't you just want to save the two of them? There is no need to be sanctimonious. Chu Fengyan sneered. He also waved his hand, breaking the old man's spiritual energy. This old man's strength was similar to Chu Qianjue's. Judging from his clothes, he should be an outer sect elder. I said that whoever comes to save them will have to kneel here. I didn't expect that other than family Chu, there is also an idiot. Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. This old man was taking advantage of his seniority. If one were to really count age, this old man was more than 10,000 years younger than Chu Fengmian. He was not even old enough to be Chu Fengmian's grandson. Arrogant brat. This old man wanted to be more courteous to you. I didn't expect you to be so arrogant. It seems that if I don't dispel your arrogance, you will turn the academy upside down. Do you really think that there are no rules in the academy? The old man's face was filled with rage. As an outer sect elder, he had never been scolded like this before. This is an outer sect elder, Tu Zheng. It is said that when he was young, he was also one of the top inner sect disciples. Later on, he was injured and his spiritual vein was damaged. Therefore, he could no longer advance and became an outer sect elder. This man's strength is said to be invincible in the same realm. He has been at the 5th level of the Spirit Sea realm for 40 years. It is said that he can fight those above his level. He is much stronger than Chu Qianjue. Chapter 149. Teach me a lesson? I don't know if an old man like you has the ability to do so. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a mocking smile. Today, I will be here to see how you're going to save the two of them. Chu Fengmian said casually. Then, he walked to one side and ignored Tu Zheng. It seemed like Chu Fengmian was ignoring Chu Qianjue and Chu Bange. Chu Fengmian took a step back. Seeing Chu Fengmian's actions, the surrounding warriors were surprised. Although Chu Fengmian did not seem to have the intention to take a step back, his actions seemed to be giving Tu Zheng a chance to save Chu Bange and Chu Bange. It seemed like he was looking for a way out. As expected, no matter how arrogant Chu Fengmian is, he wouldn't dare to fall out with the family Chu. To take a step back at this moment, this brat still has some rationality. Everyone commented. Looking at Chu Fengmian's actions, everyone guessed that Chu Fengmian took a step back. Take a step back? Hearing everyone's discussion, Chu Fengmian sneered. Since when would he, Chu Fengmian, take a step back? A family Chu was not worthy. Humph. Tu Zheng snorted and glanced at Chu Fengmian, as though he was saying that Chu Fengmian was tactful. He walked to the front of Chu Qianjue and Chu Bange. A surge of spiritual energy gathered in his palm and shot out. He was prepared to break the pressure on the two of them and save them. Boom! The surge of spiritual energy hit the seal on Chu Qianjue and Chu Bange. However, just as the spiritual energy was released, it met with the boundless dragon might on the seal. Boom! The restriction on Chu Qianjue's and Chu Bange's bodies suddenly rebounded with spiritual energy. Instead, it was directed at Tu Zheng, forcing him to retreat a few steps. Tu Zheng spat out a mouthful of blood. What? Tu Zheng couldn't break the seal set by Chu Fengmian? He actually vomited blood from the backlash. How strong is this Chu Fengmian? Even Tu Zheng is unable to break his seal? Everyone's eyes were filled with endless shock and excitement. Initially, they had thought that Tu Zheng would be able to resolve everything. However, from the looks of it now, Chu Fengmian had yet to make a move. Tu Zheng couldn't even break the seal that he had set up. Chu Fengmian took the initiative to step aside. Initially, they thought that Chu Fengmian was purposely letting Tu Zheng save the two family Chu so that he could find a way out. Now, it seemed that Chu Fengmian wasn't going to stop. It was because Chu Fengmian had absolute confidence that Tu Zheng could not even break his seal. There was no need for Chu Fengmian to do it personally. Domineering, absolutely domineering. A warrior of the body refining realm could be so arrogant that he could set up a restriction formation that even Tu Zheng, an outer sanctum patriarch and a warrior of the 5th tier of the Spirit Sea realm, couldn't break. Was this really something a warrior of the body refining realm could do? Patriarch 2, if you can't break it, don't force yourself. Be careful of the backlash from a seal. Chu Fengmian said faintly from the side. In Tu Zheng's ears, this sentence was filled with endless mockery. Arrogant junior, I was just careless for a moment. I can break such a small seal with a wave of my hand. Tu Zheng walked over and roared madly. How could he accept being ridiculed by a junior? He let out a loud roar, and instantly, the spiritual energy in his body skyrocketed. Tu Zheng had taken out his ultimate skill. If he couldn't even break the seal today, then Tu Zheng, would lose his face. From then on, he wouldn't have the face to stay in the Wushang Academy anymore. Swish, swish, swish. Beside Tu Zheng, a gush of terrifying spiritual energy surged crazily, causing his body to emit a golden glow. He made his move again. Countless golden glows turned into a golden long sword and slashed down abruptly. This golden long sword contained the innate gold spirit and was indestructible. Once it slashed down, everyone could feel that all the seals would be destroyed by this golden long sword. Bang! The golden long sword slashed down. On the bodies of Chu Qinjue and Chu Beige, there were countless runes that no one could understand. As these runes gathered, the power of the golden longsword was instantly neutralized. These golden runes were ancient divine runes. The seal that Chu Fengyan had carved on the bodies of the two was an ancient seal. Unless it was someone who was stronger than Chu Fengyan, no one could break it. In the Divine Sea realm, only experts at the 8th or 9th level of the Divine Sea realm had the chance to break it. Even if Tu Zheng used all his strength, he wouldn't be able to break it. Boom! As the golden sword shattered, the recoil hit Tu Zheng's body once again, sending him flying a few meters away. Once again, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground and couldn't stand up for a moment. The taste of this backlash wasn't that pleasant. This backlash was almost equivalent to a casual attack from Chu Fengyan. To Tu Zheng, 2 backlashes were enough to severely injure him. If you can't break my seal, you don't have to force yourself. Instead, you ended up with a severely injured body. Chu Fengyan looked at Tu Zheng, who was lying on the ground, and said with a mocking smile. Seeing Chu Fengyan smile and hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Tu Zheng spat out another mouthful of blood. He then fell to the ground. He fainted. This Tu Zheng, an expert at the 5th level of the Divine Sea realm, was angered to the point of fainting by Chu Fengyan. He had lost face in front of everyone. In the future, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in the Martial Victory Academy. So scary. Even with Tu Zheng's full strength, he couldn't break this seal. Even Tu Zheng couldn't save the two of them. Chu Fengyan is only at the Divine Sea realm. How could he have such terrifying strength? This kid's strength is extremely strange. Do you think that a newbie who could enter the 70th level of the Heavenly Road is an ordinary person? Some of the elders in the Martial Victory Academy might not even be able to enter the 70th level in their lifetime. Even Xianbei, Saint took him in as a disciple. Chu Fengyan's strength isn't simple. Given enough time, he might be the next crown prince. Countless people were discussing in low voices. The next crown prince. The crown prince of the Martial Victory Academy was a legend. In the eyes of everyone, this legend was almost unbreakable. But now, there was another Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan, who was even more powerful than Ji Lingtian. The next crown prince? Chu Fengyan revealed a disdainful smile. Chapter 150. Although Chu Fengyan was arrogant, he was extremely confident. It had only been 4 months since Chu Fengyan's rebirth. Chu Fengyan's achievements in 4 months were already more than what many people could achieve in 10 or 20 years. Given another half a year, Chu Fengyan was confident that he could break through to the peak of the Divine Sea realm or even the wind-controlling realm. At that time, with Chu Fengyan's strength and the power of the Battle Dragon release, he would be able to defeat the Crown Prince. It wasn't impossible. Senior Chu, you should leave quickly. If this continues, the family Chu's wind-controlling realm experts will come. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to fight against them. A voice suddenly sounded from the side. It was a man who spoke to Chu Fengyan anxiously. This man was Su Hu, who Chu Fengyan met during the exam. Now that he was promoted to an inner disciple, he rushed over after hearing about the mission hall. Now that Su Hu was an inner disciple, he understood the situation of the family Chu. He understood that the family Chu was a huge existence in Wushang Academy. It wasn't that there weren't any wind-controlling realm experts in the family Chu. However, Such experts wouldn't appear easily. If Chu Fengmian continued to force them, the family Chu's true experts would definitely make a move. It's fine. Even if the family Chu's wind-controlling realm expert comes, they can't do anything to me. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed as he spoke calmly. Is that so? Then this old man wants to see what kind of ability a junior like you has to speak so arrogantly and provoke our family Chu. A deep voice was heard all of a sudden. A white figure suddenly appeared outside the mission hall. It was a white-haired old man. His face was filled with endless anger. This is Chu Qianjue's uncle, Chu Hongsha. He's an inner disciple elder of our Wu Sheng Academy. His strength has reached the terrifying wind-controlling realm. Chu Fengmian actually forced the family Chu's wind-controlling realm expert to come out. Seeing Chu Hongsha appear, everyone was extremely shocked. Inner sect elders had always been elusive existences in Wuxing Academy. They usually cultivated in extremely secluded places and rarely appeared in public. Normally, all matters of the Wuxing Academy were handled by the outer sect elders. Now that Chu Qianjue had been forced to kneel, the family Chu experts could no longer sit still. Chu Xiang'e was of the same generation as Chu Fengmian. It was normal for him to be defeated by Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Qianjue was Chu Fengmian Sr. He was 20 years older than Chu Fengmian. Even as an outer sect elder, he was forced to kneel on the ground by Chu Fengmian. This kind of humiliation was something that the family Chu had never experienced in thousands of years. Uncle, kill your grandfather. Chu Qianjue and Chu Banj shouted excitedly when they saw Chu Hongsha rushing over. Uncle, you must kill this brat. Extract his soul and refine it, and let him suffer all the sufferings of the world. Chu Qianjue roared. When he saw Chu Hong rushing over, he knew that there was finally someone who could save him today. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian could struggle in front of Chu Hongsha, who had reached the wind-resisting realm. Shut up, you two pieces of trash. You've completely disgraced our Chu clan. Chu Qianjue, Chu Banj, and Chu Hongsha's expressions turned ugly when they saw Chu Qianjue kneeling on the ground. When had their family Chu ever been humiliated like this? Since the establishment of the Wuxing Academy, their family Chu had always been at the top of the academy. Even the previous deans of the Wuxing Academy didn't dare to offend their family Chu. Today, a new junior had actually humiliated their family Chu. He wanted nothing more than to kill Chu Qianjue and Chu Banj, these two trash. However, now wasn't the time to hold them accountable. Right now, under the watchful eyes of so many people, if he were to kneel any longer, the entire academy would know about this matter. Everyone get out. No one is allowed to speak of today's matter. Chu Hongsha roared, and a shocking amount of spiritual energy exploded out of him. Under this burst of spiritual energy, all the cultivators present were sent flying out of the mission hall. Bang, bang, bang. Cultivators were constantly sent flying by Chu Hongsha. There were even a few cultivators who were nearby who were severely injured by Chu Hongsha. They vomited blood outside the hall. This Chu Hongsha is really domineering. Does he really think that the Wuxing Academy belongs to his family Chu? A few disciples who were thrown out were still complaining when suddenly their bodies were torn apart by a burst of spiritual energy. Anyone who dares to provoke our family Chu must die, Chu Hongsha said coldly. As an inner sect elder, killing a few outer sect disciples wasn't a big deal. Moreover, he was a member of the family Chu. The Wuxing Academy wouldn't blame him for killing a few outer sect disciples. The lives of 10,000 outer sect disciples weren't as important as an inner sect elder. Junior, this old man will give you a chance. Kneel down and apologize. Let this old man plant a restriction on you. From now on, you'll be a slave of my family Chu. If you work for my family Chu, this old man will spare your life today. Chu Hongsha looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. A strong pressure suddenly pressed down. Under this pressure, the air in the hall seemed to have frozen. Chu Hongsha wanted to pressure Chu Fengmian, just like how Chu Fengmian suppressed Chu Qianjue and Chu Sad. He wanted to force Chu Fengmian to kneel on the ground. The pressure of the Imperial Wind Realm was completely different from that of the Divine Sea Realm. Facing a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, even one at the peak of the Divine Sea Realm, Chu Fengmian had a chance to escape unscathed. However, facing the pressure of the Imperial Wind Realm cultivator, Chu Fengmian felt like he couldn't breathe. In Chu Fengmian's body, the blood of the ancient war dragon surged wildly. The ancient war dragon had never been pressured by anyone before. A burst of spiritual energy rushed into Chu Fengmian's body. You want me to submit? What a joke. Even the people of the 7 great sects don't dare to say such words. Who do you think you are? Chu Fengmian frowned. The ancient war dragon's blood essence in his body suddenly burst out. An unparalleled dragon pressure erupted from Chu Fengmian's body. It actually resisted Chu Hongsha's pressure. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at Chu Hongsha. This is dragon pressure? You really did have a fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to defeat Qianjue with your body refining realm cultivation. Chu Hongsha's eyes were fixed on Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, he opened his mouth again. Hand over your fortuitous encounter, and this old man can spare your life. Chu Fengmian's mouth twitched. His disdainful voice rang out. Chapter 151. Old bastard, have you had enough of your dreams? Chu Fengmian did not lower his voice at all. The expressions of the disciples gathered outside the mission hall became incomparably interesting. Old bastard. In the Martial Victory Academy, there had never been anyone who dared to say such things about Chu Hongsha. Chu Hongsha's face immediately turned red. Chu Fengmian could feel a surge of killing intent suddenly erupting from him. Little bastard, it seems that you really want to die. Today I'll kill you first. In any case, I'll capture your soul and extract it to refine it. Your fortuitous encounter will also be obtained by me. Chu Hongsha roared angrily. He could no longer restrain the killing intent in his heart. Immediately, a surge of killing intent condensed on his fist and smashed toward Chu Fengmian. It's about time. Seeing Chu Hongsha attack, Chu Fengmian's palms were covered in cold sweat. He was waiting. He was waiting for someone to save him. Facing a wind-resisting realm cultivator, even if Chu Fengmian were to use his full strength, he might not necessarily be able to resist him. At the moment when Chu Hongsha attacked, an aura suddenly rushed out from outside the palace. Sensing this aura, Chu Fengmian's heart finally relaxed. Someone had come. Chu Hongsha, you've gone too far. An aged voice abruptly rang out. A burst of spiritual energy burst forth and blocked Chu Fengmian's attack. Chu Hongsha's fist was easily dissolved by the spiritual energy. Old Chun, Chu Fengmian said in a low voice as he looked at the old man blocking his path. This old man was the old servant of Chu Fengmian's master, the Xianbei saint, Chunzhou. Chu Fengmian dared to face Chu Hongsha without fear. He already had a plan in mind. Now that Chu Fengmian was in the Martial Victory Academy, it was impossible for his every action in the mission hall to escape the eyes of the Xianbei saint. Once a wind-resisting realm cultivator came, the Xianbei saint would definitely not sit idly by. Sure enough, the moment Chu Hongsha attacked, old Chun appeared. Chunzhou, an old servant like you dares to stop me? Chu Hongsha roared when he saw Chunzhou blocking his way. He also knew Chunzhou's identity. Chunzhou was an old servant who had always followed Saint Xianbei. As an inner elder, he had never cared about Chunzhou. But now, Chunzhou had actually blocked his path, causing him to frown. Scram! This little bastard dares to provoke our family Chu. He will die today. Chu Hongsha, Chu Fengmian is master's disciple. You dare to kill him? Although Chunzhou's expression was calm, his anger could be heard. Chu Fengmian was Saint Xuanbei's disciple. Everyone in the Martial Victory Institute knew about this. Yet Chu Hongsha had actually dared to act rashly, wanting to kill Chu Fengmian. This was simply not putting Saint Xianbei in his eyes, which made him angry. Leave now, and take your Chu clan members with you. His voice was extremely indifferent. However, to Chu Hongsha, it sounded incomparably mocking. If Saint Xianbei had come, Chu Hongsha would have taken family Chu away without a word. However, Chunzhou was just a servant of Saint Xianbei. He had no status in the Martial Victory Institute. Even an old servant dared to berate him and ask him to leave? Impossible. This little bastard has disgraced our family Chu. If I don't kill him today, our family Chu won't have a place to stand. Chu Hongsha said coldly. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have Saint Xianbei behind you. Our family Chu also has a saint. We won't be afraid of you. If you don't scram, I'll kill you too. Chu Hongsha roared. Boundless killing intent burst out from his body. Slaughter the world. Kill. When Chu Hongsha shouted the word kill, it seemed to contain the most terrifying killing intent in the world. It was said that Chu Hongsha was born with an extremely terrifying killing intent. He was known as the innate killing god. His killing intent was infused into the wind of his fists. Once he attacked, he would not stop until he was dead. Scram. Facing Chu Hongsha's killing punch, Chinzhou merely waved his hand indifferently. Chu Hongsha's punch was easily neutralized by Chinzhou's wave of his hand. The power of the backlash caused Chu Hongsha to be pushed back dozens of steps. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at the unstable spiritual energy on Chu Hongsha's body, it was obvious that he was severely injured. What? Chu Hongsha's all-out punch was so easily neutralized. He neutralized Chu Hongsha's all-out punch with a single move. It's enough to seriously injure him. What kind of strength is needed to accomplish this? What kind of strength does this old man have? Could he be the Saint Xianbei? Some of the cultivators outside the palace couldn't hear what was said inside, but they could see that Chinzhou had easily neutralized Chu Hongsha's punch with a single move. He had even seriously injured Chu Hongsha. Among the inner elders of the Martial Victory Academy, Chu Hongsha was considered to be in the middle. Only some of the grand elders of the Martial Victory Academy who were at the peak of the wind-resisting realm could defeat him in one move. This ordinary-looking old man actually possessed strength comparable to a grand elder. It wasn't only Chu Fengyan. Even the old man behind Chu Fengyan was extraordinarily powerful. This was simply unbelievable. Since you're a member of the family Chu, I'll teach you a lesson this time. Let me tell you, even if Chu Longming were here, he wouldn't dare speak to this old man in such a manner. Chinzhou coldly glanced at Chu Hongsha and loudly roared. Take your people from the family Chu and scram. Let's go. When Chu Hongsha heard Chinzhou say the name Chu Longming, he already had the intention to retreat. Chu Longming was the name of the current head of the family Chu. Since Chinzhou dared to directly address Chu Longming by his name, his strength was definitely much more terrifying than he had imagined. Whoosh! Chu Hongsha broke the restrictions on Chu Qianjue and Chu Beige with a single palm strike. Then, he brought the two of them and fled in panic. The people from the family Chu actually fled in panic. Chu Hongsha's escape had practically stimulated the hearts of all the disciples present. The people from the family Chu who could cover the sky with one hand in the Martial Victory Institute, had actually fled. All the disciples present glanced at Chu Fengyan. Their eyes were filled with fear. Chu Fengyan was someone they absolutely couldn't afford to offend. Many thanks to Elder Chun for saving us. Chu Fengyan looked at Chinzhou and expressed his gratitude. It's only my duty. Young master, there's no need to be so courteous. Chinzhou calmly replied. Let's go. Master has been waiting for young master's return for a long time. Okay. Chapter 152. Master. Chu Fengyan saw Xianbei, saint, standing in the courtyard when he returned to the mountaintop. Master. Chinzhou, who was standing at the side, said in a low voice. You're back. Very good. You completed the task I gave you. You can be called my disciple now. The Xianbei saint looked at Chu Fengyan with satisfaction in his eyes. You've done well. You've completed the task of killing that demon in a week. This speed is faster than I expected. That means you've been hiding your strength in the entrance exam. Xianbei saint suddenly stared at Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan felt that Xianbei saint's spiritual consciousness was on him. It was as if he wanted to see through everything about Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan hurriedly retracted his divine pulse and tried his best to hide the battle dragon release. Chu Fengyan wasn't confident that he could hide everything in front of Saint. However, these were important matters. Even though Xianbei Saint was his master now, He didn't dare to tell him everything. In the 9 regions, in order to fight for a chance, not to mention master and disciple, even father and son would kill each other. The only people Chu Fengmian trusted were his master in his previous life, the master of the sword Dao, and Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters. Chu Fengmian didn't trust anyone else. Don't be so nervous. It's normal for you to hide your strength. You'd be a fool if you revealed it all. Xianbei Saint looked at Chu Fengmian's nervous expression and laughed. Although I'm your master, I won't interfere with your fortuitous encounter. Don't worry, I'm not so stingy as to steal my disciple's fortuitous encounter. Xianbei Saint's laughter eased Chu Fengmian's tension. Xianbei Saint pretended to look at Chu Fengmian with his spiritual consciousness, but in fact, he didn't really want to see through Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter. I won't interfere with your conflict with the family Chu. You can deal with it yourself. However, if those old guys from the family Chu dare to make a move, I won't sit idly by. Xianbei Saint snorted coldly. Judging from his tone, he was dissatisfied with Chu Hongsha's attack earlier. It was indeed a little shameful for an old man to bully the younger generation. Thank you, master, Chu Fengmian said hurriedly. As he had guessed, Xianbei Saint would not get involved in the conflict between Chu Fengmian and the family Chu. However, this was only limited to the conflict between Chu Fengmian and the younger generation of the family Chu. If an old man in the wind-resisting realm dared to make a move, Saint Xianbei would not sit idly by. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. Although the Xianbei Saint was indifferent, he was still very concerned about his disciples. Judging from Chun Zhou's sudden attack, the Xianbei Saint would at least protect Chu Fengmian in the Martial Victory Academy. As long as there were no old men in the wind-resisting realm, none of the younger generation of the family Chu would be a match for Chu Fengmian. Xianbei Saint glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, "However, don't underestimate the younger generation of the family Chu. The true geniuses of the family Chu's younger generation are not in the Martial Victory Academy, but in the Sacred Land. You may not be able to defeat them with your strength." Oh, Chu Fengmian was surprised. There were martial artists in the younger generation of the family Chu who could contend with him. Even Chu Qinjue was no match for Chu Fengmian. How could the Xianbei Saint say such words when he was as strong as Chu Fengmian? Could it be a core disciple of the Martial Victory Academy? Chu Fengmian asked. The true geniuses of the Martial Victory Academy were not in the inner sect, but the legendary core disciples. The most famous disciple of the Martial Victory Academy, Crown Prince Ling Tian, was one of the core disciples. As for the core disciples, there were many different opinions in the Martial Victory Academy. Chu Fengmian had only heard of them, but did not know much about them. That's right. The inner sect disciples are nothing in the Martial Victory Academy. The core disciples are the true geniuses. The Xianbei Saint nodded and said, "The fact that the family Chu has been in the Martial Victory Academy for thousands of years means that they are not as simple as you think. The two most outstanding disciples of the family Chu are actually among the core disciples. They are currently cultivating in the sacred ground. The reason I called you here today is to ask if you want to cultivate in the sacred ground." The Xianbei Saint looked at Chu Fengmian and said suddenly. His voice was like thunder. "Cultivate in the sacred ground?" Chu Fengmian raised his eyebrows. He had heard of the sacred ground of the Martial Victory Academy from the rumors. It was said that the sacred ground was a relic from the ancient times. It was filled with rich spiritual energy, countless spiritual herbs, and spiritual pills. As long as one entered the Holy Land and was able to come out alive, their strength would increase by several levels. However, Chu Fengmian did not know what the sacred ground was. "Master, may I know what the sacred ground is?" Chu Fengmian asked. He had to know what the sacred ground was before he made a decision. "You're so cautious at such a young age." The Xianbei Saint smiled when he heard Chu Fengmian's question. "The sacred ground is just a general name. It's actually a huge ancient relic. It's so big that it's boundless. The relic was discovered by the Martial Victory Academy and the other 4 sections. No one can monopolize it. The saints of the Martial Victory Academy and the other 4 sects work together to set up a restriction. Every year, Only 15 people from each sect are allowed to enter. There are countless relics from the ancient times in the relic. There's also a damaged ley line. The spiritual energy inside is extremely rich. Even if you don't have any fortuitous encounters, your cultivation speed will be 10 times faster than outside. The Xianbei saint asked Chu Fengmian again, "Are you willing to go to the sacred ground? With my reputation, it's not difficult to get you a place." "I'm willing," Chu Fengmian replied hurriedly. Putting everything else aside, the moment Chu Fengmian heard that there was a damaged earth vein inside, he decided to enter no matter what. The spiritual energy contained in an earth vein was almost limitless. Even if it was a damaged earth vein, the spiritual energy contained in it would be equivalent to hundreds of millions of energy-gathering pills, or even more. What Chu Fengmian lacked the most now was spiritual energy. For the sake of the damaged ley line, he had to go. Chapter 153. Entering the Holy Land is fraught with danger. Less than 30% of the people can come out alive. You have to think carefully. Xianbei's saint looked at Chu Fengmian and said indifferently, "However, I still hope that you can go in. Even I can't see through the mysteries of the Holy Land." Hearing this, Chu Fengmian was a little surprised. He had thought that the Holy Land was an ancient relic and that the mysteries should have been seen through by Wu Shang Academy and the four superpowers. However, Xianbei's saint seemed to be saying that even he could not see through the mysteries of the Holy Land. Saint Xianbei was a saint. Many of the secrets of the 9 regions were nothing to a saint. However, from what Xianbei's saint had said, it seemed that there were more secrets hidden in the Holy Land. Xianbei's saint saw the confusion in Chu Fengmian's eyes and did not hide it. Actually, there's a restriction set up at the borders of the sacred land. This restriction isolates all cultivators whose strength has reached the divine force realm and above. Therefore, old fellows like us aren't able to enter at all to explore the mysteries. Indeed, Chu Fengmian wasn't surprised to hear Xianbei saint's words. Indeed, if saints like them could enter the Holy Land, the countless treasures would have been taken away by them. How could there be any left? It was because of this restriction that the Holy Land had existed for so long. After all, it was difficult for a group of divine sea realm and wind controlling realm martial artists to explore the entire Holy Land. It was not easy to explore part of it. There is one more thing. Zhi Lingtian once entered the Holy Land and found an upper earth-grade elixir pill. It was a divine Buddha golden elixir that allowed his strength to improve rapidly. The hidden treasures in the Holy Land are enormous. Xianbei's saint's words were like a thunderclap that exploded in Chu Fengmian's heart. Upper earth-grade elixir pill. Divine Buddha golden elixir. It was no wonder that Zhi Lingtian's talent and strength could surpass so many disciples. In just 15 years, he had reached the peak of Wu Shang Academy. The immortal Buddha Orris pill was formed from the essence of a powerful ancient Buddhist cultivator. It represented a lifetime of spiritual power and a lifetime's worth of reserves. Turning into immortal Buddha Orris core, anyone who obtained it would receive the spiritual power of a Buddha cultivator's lifetime. Naturally, one's strength would soar. If I hadn't obtained this golden elixir, I would have been able to condense 5 drops of primordial war dragon blood essence and reach the divine sea realm. Chu Fengmian thought to himself, the spiritual power of the immortal Buddha Orris elixir was not something that spirit-gathering elixirs could compare to. Tens of millions of spirit-gathering elixirs could not compare to a single immortal Buddha Orris elixir. If Chu Fengmian could get one of them, it was really possible for him to reach the spirit sea realm. By then, with the power of the 10 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence and Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship, he would have the power to fight against a wind-controlling realm warrior. In the face of the crown prince, Ling Tian, he might have the ability to resist. No matter what, Chu Fengmian had to go to the Holy Land. I've told you everything I know. It's up to you whether you want to go to the Holy Land or not. Xianbei saint finished his sentence and waited for Chu Fengmian's reply. Entering the Holy Land, it was indeed possible to obtain a lot of benefits and even enormous ancient treasures. However, there were also many dangers. The martial artists who were able to be selected to enter the Holy Land were the cream of the crop among the various major forces. But even so, less than 30% of them were able to walk out alive. It could also be seen how many dangers there were in the Holy Land. I'm willing to go. Chu Fengmian's words were firm, without any hesitation. Opportunities were closely related to danger. If Chu Fengmian did not go because of danger, then what was the point of cultivating martial arts? How could he become an expert? Good. At noon tomorrow, go to the upper dock. There will be an ark waiting for you there to take you to the Holy Land. Xianbei Saint laughed. He was very satisfied with Chu Fengmian's decisive answer. Here, this is a little thing that I specially refined for you. I don't want to give you too much help. After all, you can only rely on yourself on the road of martial arts. This little thing is the only help I can give you. It can save your life at a critical moment. Xianbei Saint waved his hand, and a jade talisman fell into Chu Fengmian's hand. There was only an extremely simple pattern on the jade talisman. However, this pattern was extremely detailed. It was obvious that it had been carved with great effort. When you encounter danger, crush this jade talisman and it will teleport you to a random location within a radius of 10 miles. It can save your life in times of danger. However, as for where this jade talisman will send you, even I am not sure. You must understand this point. Thank you, Master. Chu Fengmian hurriedly thanked him. This jade talisman was not a small thing. In the 9 regions, it also had a name, the spatial jade talisman. Only saints who had touched the power of space could refine it. During the refining process, the blood of a saint had to be added in to make it successful. The blood of a saint was not the blood of an ordinary martial artist. Their blood contained the law of space and enormous spiritual power. Consuming a drop of it would affect one's strength. This spatial jade talisman required at least a few drops of Xianbei Saint's essence blood. This spatial jade talisman was only refined for his most beloved disciple. Since I've taken you in as my disciple, it's not a big deal to refine such a little thing for you. Xianbei Saint laughed. But if I have 3 to 5 disciples, I can't afford to use it. Since I only have 1 disciple, it's not a big deal to refine one. Let's go. I still hope that you won't need to use this jade talisman. Yes. Chu Fengmian respectfully bowed and turned to leave the courtyard. Chun Zhou said in a low voice, Master doesn't intend to take any disciples, right? Why did you take young Master as your disciple? Although I don't intend to take any disciples, I have to leave now. I don't know if I'll live or die. It's important to leave my legacy behind. Xianbei Saint's eyes were filled with determination. Leave? Does Master feel the impending disaster? Chun Zhou's eyes flashed with surprise. That's right. So before I leave, I'll try to let this little guy grow up. This way, I can leave safely. When he comes out of the sacred land, it should be about time. Chapter 154. The next day, noon, Chu Fengmian walked up to the upper pier. There were already more than 10 inner disciples gathered near the pier. They were all chatting and waiting for something. When they saw Chu Fengmian, many of them looked at him. It's Chu Fengmian. This monster is also going to enter the Holy Land this time. A newcomer can actually enter the Holy Land. This guy is really lucky to have the Xianbei Saint as his master. The inner disciples looked at Chu Fengmian with jealousy in their eyes. Most of them had been cultivating in Wuxing Academy for more than 10 years before they got the chance to enter the Holy Land. Chu Fengmian, a newcomer, could actually enter the Holy Land. How could they not be jealous? Facing these jealous eyes, Chu Fengmian only sneered. Jealous? Chu Fengmian was able to have the Xianbei Saint as his master because of his own strength. He naturally did not care about these disciples' opinions. If they did not provoke Chu Fengmian was not interested in them. However, if they came to court death, Chu Fengmian would not be lenient. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. This had always been Chu Fengmian's creed. They waited until noon before an inner sect elder arrived on an ark. When the ark reached the shore, countless warriors leaped onto it. Chu Fengmian also leaped up and stepped onto the ark. Elder Yang, will the Wuxing Academy and the 4 major sects still participate in the Holy Land trial? An inner court disciple, who obviously knew Elder Yang, asked. I heard that the Holy Land trial this time is a little different. Little guy, you know quite a lot. Elder Yang nodded and said, the Holy Land trial this time is indeed different from the previous ones. In the previous Holy Land trial, the Wuxing Academy and the 4 major sects disciples would enter. However, there's another force this time. It's the black market. The disciples of the black market will also enter the Holy Land this time to participate in the trial. What? The black market? I've long heard that the black market has always wanted to send disciples to the sacred land to cultivate, but they have never succeeded. This time, it is said that another saint has been born in the black market, so under pressure, the academy and the 4 major sects gave in and allowed the black market disciples to participate. Hearing the name of the black market, countless disciples began to discuss. The existence of the black market was extremely special in Wuxing Nation. If Wuxing Academy and the 4 major sects were the bright side of Wuxing Academy, then the black market was the dark side. In the victorious martial country, there were naturally many things that could not be exposed. Because of this, another great power was born, the black market. However, the black market was different from other factions. It was divided into many smaller factions and was extremely unorganized. However, if the entire black market was combined, even a Martial Victory Institute would not dare to underestimate it. This time, a saint had emerged from the black market. That was why the Martial Victory Academy and the 4 major sects had backed off and allowed the black market disciples to participate in the Holy Land trial. So what if you're a disciple of the black market? A bunch of shady guys. An inner disciple said disdainfully. In the eyes of some people, the black market was a shady existence. Therefore, as a disciple of Wuxing Academy, he naturally looked down on the black market. Don't look down on the black market disciples. As far as I know, this batch of black market disciples are extremely talented. Some of them are even comparable to the core disciples of Wuxing Academy. If you encounter them, you have to be careful, Elder Yang said calmly. Elder Yang said indifferently. His words were also a reminder. Comparable to the core disciples. Upon hearing these words, the expression of the inner disciple who had looked down on the black market disciples changed. Core disciples were existences that inner disciples like them had to look up to. This was because in order to become a core disciple, it was the most basic and the most important condition. That was to be in the Imperial Wind Realm, or to have the strength comparable to the Imperial Wind Realm. Only those who had the strength of the Imperial Wind Realm could be promoted to an inner disciple. This was what Elder Yang meant. It meant that among the black market disciples who were participating in the Holy Land trial, there were disciples who were comparable to the Imperial Wind Realm. Strength was the real deal. Even if the black market disciples had the strength of the Imperial Wind Realm, it was not enough to be looked down upon. With the strength comparable to the Imperial Wind Realm, the power of the black market seems to be much stronger than I imagined. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Chu Fengmian did not care about the Divine Sea Realm warriors, but the Imperial Wind Realm warriors were enough of a threat to him. This also reminded Chu Fengmian that although Wuxing country was not big, there were still many geniuses. He must not underestimate any of them. The ark flew 100 miles in an instant. In 2 hours, the ark passed through countless mountains and arrived in front of a huge mountain range. This huge mountain range was the Holy Land. Chu Fengmian could vaguely see a huge array that completely covered the mountain range. Although this array was ancient, the remaining power in it was extremely terrifying. This was an array that could only be set up by warriors who had surpassed the divine power realm. This Holy Land does indeed have great treasures. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. To be able to set up such an array, the treasures left behind would definitely be shocking. Chu Fengmian stood on the ark and looked at the Holy Land. He felt a sense of familiarity in his heart. Descend. The huge ark landed in front of the Holy Land's entrance and slowly descended. Including Chu Fengmian, 15 inner disciples landed together and stood in front of the entrance. They curiously looked at the Holy Land's various things. This Holy Land was said to be extremely mysterious by countless disciples of Wuxing Academy. Now that they saw it, there was not much difference except that it was extremely quiet. "Ha ha, Brother Yang," Are these the disciples of Wu Sheng Academy? There are quite a lot of geniuses. As soon as they landed, a red-haired elder walked over with a big smile. Behind the red-haired elder was a similarly red-haired youth. On the forehead of this youth, there was an extremely special, fiery red mark. Brother Yin, you are quite fast. You are even faster than our Wu Sheng Academy's arc. Elder Yang laughed heartily when he saw the red-haired elder. Who doesn't know that your Candle Flame sect has recently produced many geniuses? This is Chapter 155, Seven-Colored Fire Rune. Elder Yang's eyes were a bit sluggish. Seeing Elder Yang's expression, the red-haired elder laughed loudly. This is the leader of the Candle Flame sect for this trial. His name is Yin Xian. Xian Yin, come and greet Elder Yang and the other disciples of the Martial Victory Academy. When the red-haired elder mentioned Yin Xian's name, his tone was filled with pride. Yin Xian walked out from behind the red-haired elder and said calmly, Yin Xian greets Elder Yang. As for the Wu Sheng Academy's disciples, Yin Xian's eyes were filled with disdain after he swept his gaze over them. He didn't say a word. Yin Xian, it's him. How arrogant. Is this guy Yin Xian, the divine emperor of the Candle Flame sect? Seven-Colored Fire Rune. This guy's talent is terrifying. Legend has it that the ancestors of the Candle Flame sect had the bloodline of the ancient Brilliant tribe. This guy has awakened the most powerful seven-colored fire rune. When the disciples of the Martial Victory Academy heard Yin Xian's name, they thought of some rumors about him. In the Martial Victory Nation, there were many geniuses in the other four sects other than the Martial Victory Academy. Yin Xian, who looked cold and arrogant, was a well-known genius in the Candle Flame sect. He had reached the peak of the Divine Sea realm before the age of 20. He was definitely a genius among geniuses. Brother Yang, Brother Yin, are you here already? Another hearty voice sounded in the sky. Then, a gust of wind suddenly swept over. Figures descended from the raging wind, and the middle-aged man in the lead walked out with a big smile on his face. Wind Perch Technique. The disciples of the Aeolus sect are here too. Behind the Wind Perch Technique, there were 15 disciples of the Aeolus sect. These disciples of the Aeolus sect came with the wind. The most powerful technique in the Aeolus sect was the wind manipulation technique. These disciples of the Aeolus sect were not weaker than the inner disciples of the Martial Victory Academy. Although the Martial Victory Academy is the strongest force in the Martial Victory Nation, it seems like the disciples of the four sects are not weaker than the Martial Victory Academy. Chu Fengyin thought to himself. Regardless of whether it was Yin Xian or the disciples of the Aeolus sect, Chu Fengyin could feel that they were all extraordinary. In particular, the young man standing behind the Phoenix Perch technique was extremely powerful. Like Xian Yin, he also had the strength of the peak of the Divine Sea realm. Chu Fengyin could feel that this young man was still hiding his strength. His true strength might be enough to reach the wind-controlling realm. The young man took a step forward and said, Aeolus sect, Feng Shaoqing. Greetings, elders, senior brothers, and junior brothers. Feng Shaoqing's tone wasn't as cold and arrogant as Yin Xian's. However, Chu Fengyin could see that Feng Shaoqing didn't put anyone else in his eyes when he spoke. These geniuses had always been extremely prideful. How could they not have some pride? Especially among this generation of inner sect disciples at the College of Wuxing, the one with the highest realm was only at the 6th level of the Spirit Sea realm. So he is Feng Shaoqing. Although his appearance is ordinary, Feng Shaoqing's strength is not inferior to Yin Xian's. The four major sects have developed rapidly in the past 10 years. Now, their disciples are able to compete with the College of Wuxing. They might even surpass the College of Wuxing this year. Looking at Feng Shaoqing's indifferent eyes, the disciples of the College of Wuxing were furious. However, no one dared to speak out. No one dared to. None of them could be Feng Shaoqing's opponent. It would be foolish to stand out if one didn't have the strength. Yin Xian and Feng Shaoqing should be the geniuses of the Candle Flame sect and the Aeolus sect. I wonder who are the people from the 3 Immortal Island and the Cold Snow Pavilion. Looking at Xian Yin and Feng Shaoqing, Chu Fengyin's battle intent surged out from his silent heart. These two were Chu Fengmian's strong opponents. It seemed like the sacred ground trial wasn't as simple as Chu Fengmian had imagined. Bang! While everyone was talking, a loud sound suddenly rang out. Not far away, a crack was forcefully torn open in the space, forming the shape of a gate. The profound, immortal gate. It's the artifact of the three immortal islands array sect. The profound, immortal gate that can break space. The door broke through space and suddenly appeared. Countless disciples walked out from it. The disciples of the three immortal island. The three immortal island could be considered the most mysterious of the four great sections. It was said that no one knew the location of the three immortal island. If the disciples of the three immortal island wanted to enter the sect, they had to use the profound immortal gate, to cross space. Therefore, it was rumored that the strength of the three immortal island was much stronger than that of the College of Wuxing. Everyone, sorry to keep you waiting. A man took the lead and walked out of the door of Immortal Mystery. Behind a man were the disciples of the three immortal island in white. The disciples of the three immortal island had always been indifferent and didn't like fighting. Even the man in the lead had a calm expression. He glanced at the crowd and greeted them. So it's Island Master Fong. The red-haired Elder Yang, and Feng Chi Shu looked over and bowed. It's the Island Master of the three immortal island, Feng Xiandao. It seems that the three immortal island also places great importance on the trial of the Holy Land. Countless voices were discussing. Feng Xiandao was at the same level as the Dean of the College of Wuxing. Naturally, everyone was shocked and excited when they saw him. Chu Fengmian could also see that Feng Xiandao's strength was extremely terrifying. It was enough to surpass Elder Chun. He was a terrifying existence with half a foot in the divine power realm. Half-Step Saint was the name given to martial artists with such strength. Although they hadn't become saints, they were far beyond the peak of the wind-resisting realm. They were called Half-Step Saints. Go and greet them. Feng Xiandao looked at a young man behind him and said indifferently, "Yes." The man stepped forward and said, "Feng Xiandao's disciple, Feng Xuanji, greets the elders, senior brothers, and junior brothers." Feng Xuanji glanced at the crowd without any change in his eyes. It wasn't an act. It was just that he didn't care. Feng Xiandao's disciples only pursued the martial Dao. They didn't care about anything else. Feng Xuanji, I've never heard of this name before, but his aura isn't any weaker than Yin Xian and Feng Shaoqing. Chapter 156. The disciples of the Candle Flame sect, the Aeolus sect, and the three immortal island are all here. Only the cold snow pavilion is left. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Just as Chu Fengmian had this thought, a chill suddenly approached. The disciples of the cold snow pavilion are here. Feeling this chill, everyone had the same thought in their minds. Numerous snow-white figures descended from the sky. These figures all had graceful figures and were all extremely young girls. The leader of the group was a woman who looked to be in her early 30s. Although she was very beautiful, no one dared to look at her. "Brother Yang, Brother Yin, Brother Feng, Island Master Feng, I'm late. Please forgive me," the woman said indifferently. "Han Chan? She's the great elder of the Cold Snow Pavilion. Han Chan? She's so young." The Cold Snow Pavilion's cultivation technique is really magical. It makes her look like she's in her early 30s. Take a guess. How old is she? I'm afraid she's 50 or 60 years old. 50 or 60 years old. She's already more than 100 years old, but she still looks so young. Many disciples began to discuss. At the same time, countless gazes fell on the disciples behind Han Chan. The Cold Snow Pavilion was very special. All the disciples of the Cold Snow Pavilion were female. At the same time, the disciples of the Cold Snow Pavilion were all innately beautiful. They were all rare beauties. The appearance of the Cold Snow Pavilion's disciples immediately attracted the gazes of countless disciples. These 15 disciples of the Cold Snow Pavilion were all wearing white veils. They looked very young, at most 16 or 17 years old. Although these disciples of the Cold Snow Pavilion had covered their faces, their crystal-like eyes were enough to show that they were all first-class beauties. Among the 15 people, There was one person who stood at the very center. Everyone could tell that there was something different about him with a single glance. It was extremely obvious, like a crane standing among chickens. Looking at her eyes, it was as if they were intoxicated. Her every move was like a noble fairy, cold and holy. Among the crowd, countless disciples' eyes were intoxicated. It was as if they were drunk, as if they were possessed. Is that the Han Yueli who is known as the #1 beauty of Wuxing country? Although she's wearing a veil, just her aura alone is enough to make one intoxicated. A warrior said in a daze. Whoever can make her fall in love with him is probably the luckiest man in the world. Another warrior said disdainfully, "Stop dreaming. The disciples of the cold snow pavilion are all handsome, but their hearts are as cold as ice. No one has ever won the favor of a disciple of the cold snow pavilion." As soon as this disciple of the cold snow school appeared, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Even the disciples of the Three Immortal Island, who were usually indifferent, couldn't help but glance at Han Yueli. This Han Yueli was enough to intoxicate the immortal Buddhas. "Fairy Han Chan, what are you saying? We've only just arrived," Elder Yang said with a smile. Only then did he cover up his previous gaffe. "Martial Victory Academy, the 4 sects are all here. Logically speaking, they should be able to open the Sacred Grounds barrier. But this year, it's a little different," the red-haired elder said with a pensive look on his face. "Ha ha, I'm sorry for making you wait." A voice suddenly rang out as a figure silently appeared in front of the crowd. Who is it? What a terrifying speed. What a soft voice. Black robes and blood words. It's someone from the black market. Looking at the person's robes, the crowd subconsciously became nervous. The black market of Wuxing country, was an extremely mysterious existence. The appearance of a martial artist from the black market was never a good thing. Now that the people from the black market had appeared in public, the crowd was not used to it. However, they quickly recovered from the shock. The black market did have a quota for this sacred ground trial. "So it's Hall Master Shui. How have you been?" The red-haired elder glanced at the newcomer and said calmly. There was no kindness in his tone. The black market did not have a good relationship with the 4 sects and Martial Victory Academy. For example, the black market had many wanted posters for the disciples of the 4 sects and Martial Victory Academy. The assassins trained by the black market had killed many geniuses from Martial Victory Academy and the 4 sections. If it were not for the black market's power, they would not be standing here calmly. They would have started fighting when they saw each other. Elder Yang, Feng Xiandao, Feng Qishu, and Han Chan did not have any intention to speak. They just looked at each other calmly, which was considered a greeting. Hall Master Shui. This is Shui Wuye, the Hall Master of the Blood Shadow Hall, one of the forces in the black market. The Blood Shadow Hall has killed countless people. I wonder how many geniuses of the victorious martial nations they have killed. This Shui Wuye once assassinated an inner elder of the Wuxing Academy, and now he dares to show himself. Humph. Now that the black market is powerful and has made peace with Martial Victory Academy and the 4 sects, he naturally dares to come out. The chatter of countless warriors rang out. At the same time, the crowd looked at the 3 people standing behind Shui Wuye. Among the 3 people, 2 of them were dressed in black robes with the word blood written on them. They were dressed like disciples of the black market. Their figures and faces were covered by the black robes, making it difficult to see them clearly. However, one of them was dressed in a golden robe. His golden robe did not make him look like an assassin of the black market. He looked more like an emperor. Let me introduce you. This is the new saint of the black market. Shui Wuye spoke and bowed respectfully to the man in golden robes behind him. Saint, this kid is the saint chosen by the black market? Elder Yang, the red-haired elder, Feng Qishu, Feng Xiandao, and Han Chan's faces changed dramatically at the same time. They all looked over. Chu Fengmian could sense that countless spirit consciousnesses had already swept over, as if they wanted to see through every inch of the Shengzi's body. Saint, the black market has chosen a saint. The owner of the black market is the black market's Saint Lord. This saint will be the next black market's Saint Lord. As long as he grows up and steps into the wind-resisting realm, he will be able to inherit the Saint Lord's position. The black market was so huge that it could be considered as a country of its own. The Saint status was almost equivalent to the Crown Prince of Martial Victory Academy. Chapter 157. The black market wasn't just a single power, but a combination of dozens of powers. The major forces in the black market were always competing with each other. The selection of the Holy Sun had to be approved by all the major forces in the black market. In fact, there was no black market Holy Lord in this generation's black market, because no one had made the countless powers in the black market submit to him. Now that the black market had selected a successor, it was indeed shocking news. A unified black market was different from the current scattered black market. All the powers in the black market combined were enough to contend with the countless powers in the victorious Wu nation. No wonder there had been more and more movements in the black market recently. The black market had actually selected a successor. With the successor, it meant that the black market had begun to unify. To be able to make the countless powers in the black market submit to him, the successor's ability was absolutely terrifying. The Blood Shadow Hall was one of the top 5 powers in the black market. Now, the Hall Master of the Blood Shadow Hall, Shui Wuye, was extremely respectful to the successor. This also proved that the successor wasn't fake news released by the black market. The real successor had indeed been selected. The successor's eyes were sizing up the crowd. Suddenly, his feet moved, and he walked over, standing in front of Chu Fengmian. He stood 5 meters away from Chu Fengmian and stopped. Any closer would be a provocation. The successor's ethereal voice rang out as he spoke slowly. "You are Chu Fengmian, the genius who stepped into the 70th level of the heavenly path during the entrance examination?" "That's right." Chu Fengmian nodded. There was no need to hide his identity. "I wonder when the successor will be looking for me." "Nothing much, but I see that your aptitude is not bad. So I plan to take you in as one of the 3 venerables of the black market, a morning star venerable." The successor's ethereal voice rang out again. His voice was extremely high and mighty. "In the victorious Wu nation, there are too few talented warriors. Among everyone here, I see that your aptitude is not bad, and you are qualified to serve me. As long as you agree, you will be a morning star venerable of the black market from now on." "Humph." Before the chosen could finish his words, a cold snort rang out. Does this mean that the saint thinks that the disciples of the other sects are weak? Yin Xian walked out as he spoke with an arrogant expression on his face. It said that the black market Holy Sun's strength is also the best among the heroes. I wonder if the Holy Sun is interested in fighting with me? Yin Xian coldly said. The reason he said this was because the saint had said that Chu Fengmian was the only person he valued among all the martial artists present. He didn't place anyone else in his eyes. How could any of the young geniuses present tolerate this? Yin Xian, who had the most arrogant personality, was the first to stand out. The Holy Sun was at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. Yin Xian, who was also at the peak of the Divine Sea realm, was naturally not afraid of him. "You think you're my match?" The Holy Sun said indifferently. There was no seriousness in his eyes as he looked at Yin Xian. Contempt. It wasn't disdain. Rather, he didn't put Yin Xian in his eyes at all. They were both at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. Yet, the Holy Sun did not even take a second look at the top genius of the Candle Flame sect, Yin Xian. "Make your move," the Holy Sun said indifferently as he stood up. Arrogant. Inextinguishable flame. Yin Xian roared as a clump of flames condensed on his hands. The clump of flames instantly turned into a fire dragon. It charged towards the Holy Sun as it roared. On the other hand, the Holy Sun only raised his hand indifferently. In an instant, the fire dragon was extinguished. What? Yin Xian's flame. It was extinguished so easily. The faces of the countless spectators changed drastically. As a disciple of the Candle Flame sect, Yin Xian's strongest ability was his ability to control fire. In addition to his pure bloodline, his flame was known as the inextinguishable flame. But in front of the Holy Sun, the flame was extinguished in an instant. This flame isn't even qualified to hurt me. You want to challenge me? Even if you go back and train for 100 years, you won't be my match. The Holy Sun said calmly. Great. You're indeed the holy son of the black market. You're incomparably arrogant. When Yin Xian heard the holy son's words, his face instantly turned red as he was enraged. As a genius of the candle flame sect, when did he fall into such a situation where he was ridiculed? Seven-colored flame rune. Yin Xian, stop. When the red-haired elder saw this scene, he instantly appeared before Yin Xian and broke the spiritual energy that Yin Xian had condensed. It's still not the time for you to use your full strength. You still have to save your strength in the sacred ground. When the red-haired elder rushed over, he secretly transmitted a message to Yin Xian. Yin Xian slowly stopped condensing his spiritual energy. He only took a glance at the holy sun and said calmly, "If we meet in the sacred ground, let's fight with our full strength." After speaking, Yin Xian flicked his sleeves and left. Revealing all his trump cards in front of so many people was the most foolish action. Yin Xian might be arrogant, but he wasn't a brute. He naturally understood this point. Although this battle was short, it was still a battle. However, everyone was now clear about how powerful the Holy Sun was. Although everyone could see that Yin Xian was holding back, the Holy Sun was still the same. The Holy Sun could block the attack of a cultivator in the same realm with a single move. This meant that the Holy Sun's strength was invincible in the Divine Sea realm. Chu Fengyan, what do you think? Do you want to join the black market and become a sovereign under my command? The Holy Sun turned around and looked at Chu Fengyan. Absolutely impossible. Chu Fengyan coldly replied. Although his tone was indifferent, everyone could hear the determination in it. Chu Fengyan would never submit in his life. Chu Fengyan would rather die than submit. Oh, Brother Chu, you're not going to consider it? The Holy Sun's expression suddenly turned cold as his killing intent was released without any concealment. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Traces of killing intent were so shocking that it made one shiver. No one dares to reject my invitation. The Holy Sun's tone changed, and there was no need to hide the killing intent in his words. The meaning in his words was clear. If they didn't submit, only death would await them. Russell, countless cultivators hurriedly retreated. They didn't dare to be affected by the Holy Sun's anger. Absolutely impossible. Chapter 158. A murderous intent suddenly appeared in the saint's eyes. The murderous intent on his body completely erupted, and a huge wave of murderous intent oppressed Chu Fengyan. Under this murderous intent, even the countless warriors nearby couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. The target of this murderous intent wasn't them, but they all felt fear in their hearts. For warriors, the most important thing when facing an enemy wasn't the difference in strength, but the influence in their hearts. If a warrior didn't have a fighting spirit in his heart, even if he was facing a weaker warrior, he would still lose if he didn't have the heart to fight. Under the saint's murderous intent, the hearts of countless people present were filled with fear. If they were to fight against the saint, they wouldn't even have the courage to make a move. The Killing Heart Demon Art, a demonic art of Nine Dragon City. You want to leave a grudge in my heart with this demonic art? Chu Fengyan frowned. He also felt a trace of fear in his heart. This fear didn't come suddenly, but because the saint's cultivation technique was a demonic art of Nine Demon City, the Killing Heart Demon Art. The saint's murderous intent was enough to affect the hearts of other warriors, planting fear in their hearts. When facing the saint, they didn't even have the ability to resist. This Killing Heart Demon Art was an extremely powerful demonic art. It was countless times stronger than Mu Yuanhua's demonic art, but it was useless against Chu Fengyan. He snorted coldly in his heart and activated the Battle Dragon art. The trace of fear in Chu Fengyan's heart was quickly expelled. He had lived 2 lives, and his mind was incomparably firm. It was impossible for this Killing Heart Demon art to affect Chu Fengyan. I'll give you one last chance. Submit to me. The Crown Prince snorted coldly, and the murderous intent on his body erupted. Under the threat of this murderous intent, even ordinary warriors wouldn't be able to resist and would choose to submit. Dream on, Chu Fengyan said coldly. You want to affect this Chu's mind with just this kind of killing intent? You haven't mastered this Killing Heart Demon art. Even if old Demon Killing Heart came, He wouldn't dare to say that he could affect me. What do you think you are? Chu Fengmian laughed as he spoke. Fight! Then, the power of the battle dragon was fully unleashed from Chu Fengmian's body, and a supreme dragon's might resounded. Roar! A dragon's roar resounded. There seemed to be a real dragon on Chu Fengmian's body, dispelling all the killing intent in the surroundings. How could a mere demonic technique withstand the dragon's might? The dragon's might on Chu Fengmian's body was the true dragon's might of an ancient battle dragon, containing endless battle intent. With a dragon roar, the fear in the hearts of many surrounding warriors was instantly dispelled, waking them up. Just now, I seem to have fallen into fear. This holy son is indeed skilled in demonic arts. We were almost affected by his killing intent. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian acted in time to wake us up. Only then did the many cultivators in the surroundings come to their senses and express their gratitude. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian's reminder, perhaps they wouldn't have been able to get rid of this grudge for the rest of their lives. They wouldn't have been able to retaliate against the saint child. Although the saint's murderous intent was directed at Chu Fengmian, he was intending to affect the other martial artists as well. It was extremely vicious. Damn, brat, you actually ruined my plan. Seeing the awakened eyes of the surrounding warriors, his face became extremely gloomy and cold. He originally wanted to use Chu Fengmian's murderous intent to affect the surrounding disciples of Wuxing Academy and the four major sects, causing them to be affected by his murderous intent. When these warriors grew up, they would be fearful when facing the saint. At that time, no one among the younger generation would be a match for the saint. However, Chu Fengmian's move not only didn't affect himself, but also exposed the saint's murderous intent. This brat must not be allowed to live. The saint looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent in his eyes. The most powerful aspect of the murderous demonic heart technique that he cultivated was that it could silently plant a heart demon in a cultivator's heart. In this way, it could even make some cultivators with weaker minds fall into his control. However, Chu Fengmian's dragon roar had ruined all his plans. He was simply the nemesis of the murderous demonic technique. If Chu Fengmian was allowed to grow up, he would definitely be a great threat to him. Quietly, he had already made a hand gesture to Shui Wuya, who was beside him, to prepare to kill Chu Fengmian. Saint, you can't. Our black market has just reconciled with Wuxing Academy and the four major sections. If you attack a disciple of Wuxing Academy now, they will surround and annihilate us. Shui Wuya secretly transmitted his voice. Let's wait until we enter the sacred ground and kill this brat personally. This brat is only at the 7th level of the body, refining realm. Once we enter the sacred ground, it will be the time of his death. All right, I will bear with it today and let him live. I will kill this brat in the sacred ground. The saint said with a cold expression. Although the saint and Shui Wuya transmitted their voices secretly, it still couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's ears. Chu Fengmian's holy sense was terrifying to the extreme. Nothing could be hidden from his holy sense. You want to kill me in the sacred ground? I'm afraid we won't know who will be the one to kill who. Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. Outside, Chu Fengmian might still have some scruples and didn't dare to use his full strength. But in the sacred ground, in a completely sealed space, no one would know. Even if Chu Fengmian caused a ruckus, no one outside would know. That would be the time for Chu Fengmian to show his true strength. This saint first wanted Chu Fengmian to submit, then wanted to plot against him. If he didn't kill him, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Brat, you're good. Looks like you're not lying when you say you can become the second Ling Tian. However, the sacred ground is filled with danger. You have to be careful and don't die in the sacred ground. The Holy Son's words were filled with undisguised, killing intent, causing Elder Yang to frown. However, he was still the saint of the black market, so Elder Yang couldn't say anything. After the saint finished speaking, he left and waited for the sacred ground to open. Everyone, since we're all here, let's open the sacred ground. Fang Xiandao was the first to speak. Now, people from Wuxing Academy, the four major sects, and the black market had all arrived. It was time to open the sacred ground. All right, Chapter 159. Saints, Please open the restriction. Feng Xiandao shouted toward the sky. Several streams of spiritual energy appeared in the sky at the same time. There were a total of 6 saints, representing the forces of the Martial Victory Academy, the 4 major sects, and the black market. In front of the Sacred Land's entrance, a teleportation array formed. This teleportation array was the entrance to the Sacred Land. Let's go. Seeing the teleportation array formed, the saints snorted and walked in. The black market's cultivators all stepped forward and followed the saint. Let's go too. Yan Xian coldly snorted as he also entered the teleportation array. His body flashed and disappeared. The disciples of the Candle Flame sect also followed him in. Then, the disciples of the 3 Immortal Island and the Aeolus sect all entered the teleportation array. When the group of Cold Snow Pavilion's disciples walked past, a figure suddenly stopped. "Thank you for your help, young Master Chu." Han Yueli stopped and thanked Chu Fengyan, then slowly walked into the teleportation array. Why does Han Yueli's cultivation technique feel so familiar? Seeing Han Yueli enter the teleportation array, Chu Fengyan was momentarily stunned. Han Yueli's cultivation technique actually felt familiar to Chu Fengyan. It wasn't because Chu Fengyan had seen her cultivation technique somewhere before. Among the people Chu Fengyan knew, he seemed to have cultivated the same cultivation technique as Han Yueli. However, Chu Fengyan couldn't remember what happened 10,000 years ago, so he couldn't think of it at the moment. "Senior brother Chu, Han Yueli has already left. You don't have to be in a daze anymore." A Martial Victory Academy's disciple next to Chu Fengyan teased him when he saw him in a daze. Since Chu Fengyan had helped them get rid of their inner demons, the Martial Victory Academy's disciples' attitude towards Chu Fengyan had improved. Most of them were jealous of Chu Fengyan, but not too hostile. Now that they owed Chu Fengyan a favor, they naturally weren't as hostile as before. "Let's go." Chu Fengyan chuckled, but didn't say anything. He, Chu Fengyan, had lived 2 lives, so he was naturally indifferent to women's charms. It was impossible for him to be intoxicated like a young martial artist. He was in a daze because he couldn't recall where he had seen this Han Yueli's technique. However, right now, the matter of the Holy Land was more important. Chu Fengyan still yearned for this legendary Holy Land. So, Chu Fengyan's feet moved, and his figure flashed as he entered the Holy Land. For a moment, the world spun. When Chu Fengyan could see again, he was already beside a pool. In the vicinity of Chu Fengmian, there was an extremely dense forest. Chu Fengmian opened up his spiritual sense to take a look, but there were no traces of any spirit masters within a 5-kilometer radius. This teleportation formation sends martial artists to different places? Chu Fengmian glanced around and muttered to himself. It seems like this Holy Land is much bigger than I imagined. There are more than 100 disciples who have entered this time. In addition to the previous generations of martial artists who have entered the Holy Land and never left, there are at least 1,000 people in the Holy Land. In the Holy Land, there weren't only martial artists who had entered this time. Many of the previous generations of martial artists who had entered the Holy Land didn't leave through the teleportation formation at the edge of the Holy Land. Instead, they had been cultivating in the Holy Land. Countless core disciples of the Wuxing Academy and the 4 major sects had been cultivating in the Holy Land. Any martial artist would only have 1 chance to enter the Holy Land in their lifetime. If someone had entered once and wanted to enter again, the teleportation formation would lose its effect and they wouldn't be allowed to enter again. The teleportation formation came from the restriction of the Holy Land. It wasn't controlled by the current saints of the Wuxing Academy or the 4 major sections. Therefore, once someone entered, they wouldn't leave unless something urgent happened. Calculating, there were at least 1,000 people in the Holy Land. There are no traces of any spirit masters within a 5-kilometer radius. From the outside, the Holy Land is only 100 kilometers in size. Now that I've entered, it's really a different world. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. He stretched out a hand in front of him. Chu Fengyan's palm quickly became wet and a few drops of dew formed. The dew wasn't ordinary dew. It was a spiritual liquid condensed from spiritual energy. A drop of spiritual liquid like this was at least equivalent to the spiritual energy of 10 spirit gathering pills. The spiritual energy in the Holy Land was at least 10 times denser than the outside world. Chu Fengmian could condense such a spiritual liquid with a wave of his hand. It was no wonder that the martial artists who entered the Holy Land would soar to the sky after leaving, even if they didn't have any fortuitous encounters. Just the spiritual energy here was 10 times denser than the outside world. Cultivating for a day here was equivalent to 10 days of bitter cultivation outside. Of course, the speed of cultivation would be extremely fast. Let's explore the Holy Land first. It's too much of a waste to just cultivate here. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself as he began to stroll around the Holy Land. There was definitely a reason for such a dense spiritual energy. However, just this dense spiritual energy was enough to give birth to many precious herbs. Is that the moon's soul herb? Chu Fengmian's eyes swept around and suddenly saw some crescent-shaped spiritual herbs under a huge tree in front of him. The moon soul herb was a black-level upper-grade spiritual herb. It could be directly consumed and turned into pure spiritual energy. Its medicinal strength was at least equivalent to 10,000 spirit gathering pills. What Chu Fengmian lacked the most now was spiritual energy. There were at least 20 moon soul herbs in front of him, which was equivalent to more than 200,000 spirit gathering pills. Chu Fengmian really needed it. Moon soul herb. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to make a move, a voice suddenly sounded from the side. A man in a red robe suddenly appeared. From the spiritual energy in his body, it could be seen that this man was a disciple of the Candle Flame sect. Such a large amount of moon soul herbs can help me break through a realm. The disciple of the Candle Flame sect was overjoyed when he saw the moon soul herb. Suddenly, he saw Chu Fengmian standing on the other side. He sized Chu Fengmian up and revealed a cold smile when he saw Chu Fengmian's realm. This Chu found the moon soul herb first. Senior brother, please leave. Chu Fengmian looked at the disciple of the Candle Flame sect and frowned as he spoke. The greed in the disciple's eyes couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. However, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to have a conflict with the disciple of the Candle Flame sect. Chapter 160. You found it first? What a joke. I've already found the moon soul grass for a few months, and I'm waiting for it to mature. First come, first served. You should leave. The Candle Flame sect's disciple snorted. His words were no different from twisting words and forcing logic. This made Chu Fengmian's eyes turn cold. Chu Fengmian wasn't interested in provoking others, but it didn't mean that he was weak. The moon soul grass was found by a Chu Fengmian first. It belonged to Chu Fengmian, and no one could snatch it from him. You're just a newbie. If you don't want to find trouble, then leave obediently. Otherwise, you'll get yourself killed. The Candle Flame sect's disciple glanced at Chu Fengmian and said. As he spoke, his figure moved, and he grabbed the moon soul grass. The moment the Candle Flame sect's disciple made his move, another faster figure had already rushed in front of him. Over 20 moon soul grass were all in Chu Fengmian's hands. Senior brother, please leave. Chu Fengmian said calmly. What a fast movement technique. When the Candle Flame sect's disciple saw that Chu Fengmian had snatched the moon soul grass in front of him, he was shocked. Then his eyes were filled with greed. To have such speed at the 7th level of the body refining realm, Chu Fengmian's movement technique was definitely exquisite. Compared to the moon soul grass, Chu Fengmian's movement technique was much better. Kid, I originally wanted to let you live, but since you don't know what's good for you, then don't be impolite to me. The Candle Flame sect's disciple laughed. His spiritual energy suddenly burst out and turned into a ball of flames, burning towards Chu Fengmian. The Candle Flame sect's disciple's strength was around the 4th level of the Divine Sea realm. He looked at Chu Fengmian with eyes filled with killing intent. I'll get your movement technique after I extract your soul and refine it. As he spoke, the flames followed the Candle Flame sect's disciple's palm and suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian. This palm was merciless. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with one blow. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and also threw out a punch. since the candle flame sect's disciple dared to kill him. Chu Fengmian wasn't someone he could bully. Chu Fengmian. Towards his enemies, Chu Fengmian. Boom. Under Chu Fengmian's punch, the flames of the candle flame sect disciple were abruptly shattered. The punch even sent him flying dozens of meters away. There was a huge hole in the chest of the candle flame sect's disciple. Although he was not dead, he was seriously injured. What? Aren't you only at the 7th level of the body refinement stage? How could it possess such terrifying power? That candle flame sect disciple shouted in disbelief. He had clearly seen Chu Fengmian's cultivation level. He was only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm, which was why he dared to make a move to kill Chu Fengmian. However, he didn't expect that he wouldn't even be able to receive a single strike from Chu Fengmian and was heavily injured. Senior, this junior has eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive this junior this time. That candle flame sect disciple directly knelt on the ground and cried bitterly. Forgive? If my strength was really at the 7th level of the body refinement stage, then the current me would be a dead man. Chu Fengmian's words were cold. The killing intent in his eyes was merciless. Die! With a furious roar, Chu Fengmian threw out another punch. This candle flame sect disciple was directly killed by Chu Fengmian. When this candle flame sect disciple attacked just now, he didn't show any mercy. Naturally, Chu Fengmian wouldn't give him a second chance. After killing this candle flame sect disciple, Chu Fengmian's hand moved and the disciple's storage bag was grabbed by Chu Fengmian. When he opened it, he found that there were many elixirs inside. Many of these spiritual herbs weren't available in the victorious martial country. It seemed like they were specialties of the Saint Lands. Although these spiritual herbs weren't a high grade, it was still better than nothing to Chu Fengmian. In the Saint Lands, there are no restrictions. The relationship between martial artists has become even more dangerous. Everyone is an enemy. Chu Fengmian thought to himself as he looked at the corpse of the candle flame sect disciple. If it was outside the Saint Lands, perhaps he would have scruples about the other party's sect and wouldn't easily kill them. However, in the Saint Lands, there were no restrictions. He could kill anyone he wanted to kill and steal treasures. It was a common sight. The scene just now had probably happened countless times. These moon soul grass should be enough to help me consolidate my realm. Chu Fengmian looked at the moon soul grass in his hand. Suddenly, he put more than 20 moon soul grass into his mouth and chewed and swallowed. If others were to see this scene, they would think that Chu Fengmian had gone mad. The medicinal efficacy of this moon soul grass was equivalent to 10,000 qi gathering pills. Now, Chu Fengmian had swallowed more than 200,000 qi gathering pills. It was definitely an astronomical figure. Not to mention a divine sea realm martial artist. Even a wind-resisting realm martial artist would explode if he swallowed such a huge amount of medicinal efficacy. However, for Chu Fengmian, he had the war dragon's shadow in his body. No matter how much spiritual power he had, it would be a joke. Even if there were more than 20 moon soul grass, the medicinal efficacy of these moon soul grass could only make the war dragon's shadow's spiritual power more vigorous. It couldn't even condense a drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. However, the medicinal efficacy of these moon soul grass had filled up Chu Fengmian's empty spiritual power when he condensed the ancient war dragon's blood essence. Now, Chu Fengmian's strength had reached its peak. Now, Chu Fengmian only needed to find an opportunity to break through again and condense more ancient war dragon's blood essence. However, Chu Fengmian was not in a hurry. He wanted to wait for more spiritual herbs and spiritual pills to break through together. Chu Fengmian intended to break through to the Divine Sea realm directly. If Chu Fengmian didn't enter the Divine Sea realm, it wouldn't increase his strength much. This Saint Lands seems to be full of spiritual herbs. In this case, I can take the opportunity to collect them and accumulate more for my breakthrough. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He casually buried the body of the candle flame sect's disciple and continued to search for other spiritual herbs. Although the other spiritual herbs were not as effective as the moon soul grass that Chu Fengmian obtained previously, They were at least equivalent to thousands of qi gathering pills. For Chu Fengyan, it was equivalent to a fortune. It should be known that Chu Fengyan only received 2,000 contribution points after completing the task of eliminating the sand bandits. At most, he could exchange them for 6,000 qi gathering pills. Now, any one of these spiritual herbs was equivalent to Chu Fengyan completing one of the tasks. Moreover, although these spiritual herbs could not be easily obtained in the Saint Lands, Chu Fengyan had collected at least 10 spiritual herbs in 2 hours. The speed of obtaining wealth was absolutely amazing. Chapter 161. 7 days passed. For 7 consecutive days, Chu Fengyan didn't sleep or rest. He traveled through the Holy Land in search of spirit medicines. The amount of spirit medicines Chu Fengyan had acquired was enough to fill half of his bag of holding. There were at least several hundred of them. During these 7 days, Chu Fengyan had a rough understanding of the general situation of the Holy Land. The Holy Land was actually an enormous mountain range, with countless other mountains within it. Chu Fengyan was currently in the outer region of the mountain range, and the spirit energy in the Holy Land was so dense that it came from the depths of the mountain range. The closer one got to the depths of the mountain range, the denser the spirit energy was. Chu Fengyan also understood why there weren't many people in the area. Most martial artists would go to the depths of the mountain range in search of the denser spirit energy. The various good fortune in the Holy Land could only be found in the depths of the mountain range. Therefore, it was only natural that Chu Fengyan would go there. However, ever since Chu Fengyan had arrived in the Holy Land, the richly lush monument in his mind was no longer as quiet as it had been. In fact, it seemed to have awakened. For some reason, the rich lush steel had awoken. Could it be that this Holy Land has something to do with Grand Emperor Rich Lush? Frowning, Chu Fengyan summoned the rich lush steel. The rich lush steel didn't want to acknowledge Chu Fengyan as its master. Given Chu Fengyan's current level of strength, there was nothing he could do about it. However, although the rich lush steel didn't want to be controlled by Chu Fengyan, it didn't seem to have any intention of rebelling. It had always been hidden within Chu Fengyan, and if he wanted to summon it, he could do so. As soon as the rich lush steel appeared, Chu Fengyan could sense a desire within it. It was a desire that led Chu Fengyan to a certain direction. It was the very center of the Holy Land, where the spirit energy was the densest. Just where is this rich lush steel taking me? I can't believe he woke up from his slumber. The rich lush steel was personally created by Grand Emperor Rich Lush. It must have sensed the aura of Grand Emperor Rich Lush, which is why it woke up. This Holy Land is located in the kingdom of martial victory, which means it must have something to do with Grand Emperor Rich Lush. Only someone on the level of Grand Emperor Rich Lush will be able to set up warding spells like that. Chu Fengyan thought to himself and analyzed the situation bit by bit. If it really does have something to do with Grand Emperor Rich Lush, then maybe I can use the Rich Lush steel to get some of the treasures in the Holy Land. Anything left behind by Grand Emperor Rich Lush is nothing to take lightly. If I can get it, I'll definitely reach a new level of power. Chu Fengyan said coldly in his heart. If this Holy Land had really been created by Grand Emperor Rich Lush, then Chu Fengyan would most likely be the one to acquire the treasures. After all, he had the rich lush steel, which meant that he had inherited the core teachings and doctrines of Grand Emperor Rich Lush. Even if it weren't for Grand Emperor Rich Lush's treasure storehouse, Chu Fengyan would still want to get his hands on some of the other treasures in this Holy Land. After all, the more good fortune he came across, the stronger he would become. Go! Thinking up to this point, Chu Fengyan didn't hesitate at all. His figure flickered, and he quickly ran in the direction indicated by the abundant, lush monument. The mountain range seemed to stretch on endlessly. Even with Chu Fengyan's speed, it took him 2 hours to reach the very heart of the mountain range. The spirit energy here was many times denser than it was on the outside. A single day of cultivation here was equivalent to 100 days of bitter cultivation outside. As Chu Fengyan proceeded along, he saw numerous scars left behind by martial artists who had fought with each other. There were even large craters in the ground. It was impossible to say how many martial artists had perished in the fighting. In this holy land, it was common for people to kill each other. The slightest disagreement could result in mutual slaughter. There were no restrictions, and everyone was free to do as they pleased. In this holy land, the only thing that mattered was strength. If you were strong enough, you could get whatever you wanted. If you weren't strong enough, you would die. We found this thousand-leaf spirit grass first, elder brothers, Chu Fengyan said. "Oomph. You little brats from the Institute of Martial Victory dare to oppose the Candle Flame Society? Screw off. The Candle Flame Society will take this thousand-leaf spirit grass." Chu Fengyan heard a voice in his ear. Chu Fengyan furrowed his brows when he heard the voice. It was another fight. He originally didn't want to bother with them, but one of the voices was extremely familiar to Chu Fengyan. It was someone Chu Fengyan was very familiar with. That made him move, and he still walked in the direction of the voice. "Brat, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and take the initiative to offer the thousand-leaf spirit grass to our elder brother Yin Xian. Then we'll let you live. Otherwise, all of you will die here today." Chu Fengyan glanced over and saw two groups of people standing on both sides of the thousand-leaf spirit grass. One of them was dressed in red, and there were more than 10 of them. They were the disciples of the Candle Flame Society that Chu Fengyan had seen before. Yin Xian was also among them. He was obviously the leader of this group of Candle Flame Society's disciples. On the other side, there were 4 young martial artists, 2 males and 2 females. They seemed to be the disciples of the Institute of Martial Victory. "It's them." Chu Fengyan was surprised when he saw the 4 disciples of the Institute of Martial Victory. The 4 of them were the ones that Chu Fengyan had met in the barbaric mountain range. Hao Lan, Mo Changhen, Yun Jialan, and Yu Zhanqing. Chu Fengyan had teamed up with them in the barbaric mountain range and obtained one of the Emperor Luan grasses. That Emperor Luan grasses was still lying quietly in Chu Fengyan's storage bag. Chu Fengyan had tried to find them when he came to the Institute of Martial Victory, but he was told that they had gone to a secret place to cultivate. He didn't expect that the 4 of them would come to the sacred ground. The 4 of them had reached the divine sea realm. They had great aptitude, and each of them had obtained a stalk of Emperor Luan grasses. After consuming it, their aptitude became even more terrifying. In such a short period of time, they had already reached the divine sea realm. However, it seemed that the 4 of them had encountered quite a bit of trouble. Fellow senior brothers of the Candle Flame Society, the Institute of Martial Victory has a good relationship with the Candle Flame Society. It's unreasonable for us to snatch it. One of them walked out. It was Mo Changhen. He frowned as he spoke. Mo Changhen was the strongest among the 4 of them. He had reached the LV3 Divine Sea Realm. Chapter 162. What a joke. Who wants to be on good terms with your Wuxing Academy? Today, our senior brother Yin Xian will take the 1,000 leaves spiritual grass. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and offer it to him. That way, you can avoid death. An eagle-nosed man from the Candle Flame sect laughed out loud. Chu Fengyan remembered this eagle-nosed man. He was a martial artist from the Candle Flame sect called Yin Mei. Yin Mei sized up Mo Changhen and the other 3. Suddenly, his eyes noticed Yu Zhanqing and Yun Jialan, who were hiding at the back of the group. Yin Mei's eyes revealed a hint of evilness as he said, "Ha ha, this young master is bored in this broken saintland. You're Mo Changhen, right? How about this? You don't have to kneel down today, but you only need to hand over the 2 girls behind you." What? Mo Changhen originally wanted to talk to the Candle Flame sect's disciples, but after hearing Yin Mei's words, his face changed. Hand over Yu Zhanqing and Yun Jialan? With Yin Mei's evilness, if Yu Zhanqing and Yun Jialan fell into his hands, it would be like a wolf entering a tiger's den. Impossible. Let's go, Mo Changhen shouted and prepared to leave with the others. Although the 1,000 leaves spiritual grass was important, it was not impossible to give it up. Want to leave? What a joke. Without our senior brother Yin Xian's words, let's see who dares to leave. Yin Mei sneered. His figure suddenly moved and stood in front of Mo Changhen's group. With a wave of his hand, More than 10 Candle Flame sect's disciples immediately surrounded Mo Changhin and the other three. Hand over the two girls, and this young master will let you go. If you don't even think about going back alive today, Yimei said coldly. He did not hide the threat in his words. In this saint land, even if I kill all of you, the Wuxing Academy will not know about it. A wise man submits to circumstances. You know what to do. Yinmei laughed. Mo Changhin was the strongest among the four, but he was only at the third level of the Divine Sea realm. Hao Lan, Yin Jialan, and Yu Zhanqing were only at the second level of the Divine Sea realm. The weakest of the Candle Flame sect disciples present was at the Divine Sea realm. Dealing with the four of them was a piece of cake. Not to mention that Xian Yin was at the peak of the Spirit Sea realm. Even if they wanted to escape, they had no chance at all. Yinmei, there's no need to talk nonsense with them. If they don't agree, just kill them, Yin Xian said impatiently. There was a hint of desire in his eyes. Hurry up and bring those two women over. Yes. Yin Mei hurriedly nodded and sneered at Mo Changhin. You all have seen it too. Senior brother Yin Xian is getting impatient from waiting. If you still don't agree, we'll have to attack. Senior brother Mo, let's fight them. Even if we die, we can't let senior sister Yu and senior sister Yin fall into their hands. Hao Lan roared furiously, and the innate wind spirit suddenly condensed. Get out of my way. In an instant, the natural wind spirit engulfed everything. Immediately, the surrounding Candle Flame sect disciples were forced to take a step back. They did not expect Hao Lan to be able to erupt with such frightening power. Useless resistance. Yinmei's eyes were filled with disdain when she saw Hao Lan's attack. She suddenly attacked, and a ball of flame condensed, turning into a flaming long sword and slashing at Hao Lan. Die! The flaming long sword cut through the air, and the surrounding air became extremely hot. Yinmei's realm was at the 5th level of the Spirit Sea realm. With a swing of her sword, Hao Lan's innate wind spirit was easily broken. Boundless, everlasting hatred. A sharp sword suddenly appeared. Mo Changhin suddenly drew his sword and slashed at Yinmei, clashing with the flaming longsword. This sword technique was clearly much more profound than Yin Mei's sword technique. However, there was still a huge gap between their realms. Mo Changhin's sword technique could not make up for the gap of 2 realms. Another one who wants to die? Yinmei sneered when she saw Mo Changhin's attack. Since you want to die first, I'll kill you first. Flame of the sky. An unusual green flame suddenly condensed in Yinmei's palm. The temperature of the flame was terrifyingly high. The surrounding Candle Flame sect disciples all took a step back. Even they could not withstand the temperature of the flame. Die. Mo Changhin's sword was easily incinerated by the green flames. Even the tip of his sword was incinerated by the green flames. You dare to resist us with such strength? Candle Flame sect, you're courting death. Yinmei laughed when he saw that Mo Changhin was forced to retreat. He looked at Yun Jialan and Yu Zhanqing and waved his hand, instantly dispelling their attacks. Come here. Following senior brother Yin Xian is much better than being an inner disciple of Wuxing Academy. Yinmei laughed and immediately reached out to grab Yu Zhanqing. Get lost. The moment Yinmei attacked, a sword light suddenly fell from the sky. This ray of sword light appeared without a sound. With a swoosh, the sword slashed out. Before Yinmei could react, he felt a sharp pain on his arm. His right hand was cut off by the sword. A figure landed in front of Mo Changhin and the rest. Who is it? How dare you meddle in our Candle Flame sex business? Are you tired of living? Yinmei roared loudly. Although he could recover from having his hand cut off by a sword with spiritual medicine, the great pain of losing a single hand caused him to go crazy. Meddle in our business? I'm going to meddle in today's matter. That figure was Chu Fengyan. He could not bear it any longer when he saw Yinmei attack. Even if Chu Fengyan did not know Mo Changhin and the rest, Chu Fengyan would not allow these Candle Flame sect disciples to bully others in front of him. What was the difference between them and those devils? It's you, Chu Fengyan? How dare you meddle in our candle flame sex business with your body refinement realm cultivation? When Yanmei heard Chu Fumian's voice, she suddenly realized who the figure in front of her was. Her face was filled with surprise, and she said greedily, I didn't expect you to meddle in our business in the sacred ground. Your Wusheng Academy's crown prince has put a bounty of 100,000 contribution points on you. Since you're here, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Heaven's scorching flame. Green flames gathered once again. The heaven scorching flame was a high profound rank martial skill, and it was Yin Mei's strongest move. Chapter 163. You want to exchange my head for contribution points? I wonder if you have a life to do it. Sky scorching flame? Such a puny flame dares to be called sky scorching? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Chu Fumian's eyes were filled with disdain as he faced the azure flame that swept over. The flame that everyone was afraid of seemed to have no meaning in front of Chu Fumian. Such a puny flame? Break! The profound azure sword spun in Chu Fumian's hand and instantly turned into a sword edge as he suddenly stabbed over. The azure flame was instantly shattered by Chu Fumian's sword edge. The fierce sword edge swept over the flames as it pierced towards Yanmei. Chu Fumian had no interest in sparing Yanmei's life. Senior brother Yan Xian, save me! Yanmei hurriedly shouted when he saw Chu Fumian's sword piercing over. He could tell that Chu Fumian's strength far surpassed his, as he was actually able to shatter his flame with a single sword strike. Such strength wasn't something that a martial artist in the 7th level of the body refinement realm could achieve. Audacious. Chu Fumian, you actually dare to injure a disciple of our candle flame sect? Are you tired of living? Yan Xian, who was standing to the side, suddenly spoke with rage. A golden flame suddenly condensed on his body and turned into a fire dragon that roared as it charged towards Chu Fumian. Scarlet Flame Dragon. This fire dragon let out a series of roars, as if it had really condensed into a real dragon. However, such a dragon roar was extremely laughable in Chu Fumian's ears. This fire dragon only had dragon might, but it didn't have dragon might. At best, it could only be considered as a worm, yet it dared to call itself a dragon. I'll let you experience what a true dragon might is. Chu Fumian laughed loudly as he madly circulated the power of the battle dragon art and condensed it on the profound azure sword. Instantly, a ray of sword chi was shot out. This ray of sword chi also turned into a sword chi dragon that charged towards Yan Xian. Although the two dragons were dragon-shaped, the fire dragon condensed by Yan Xian was like a worm in front of the sword chi dragon condensed by Chu Fumian. It did not have the nobility of a dragon. Once it was compared, its true form would naturally be revealed. There were many martial skills in the world that liked to condense dragon shapes, because dragons are the strongest creatures in the world. Once a martial skill was condensed into a dragon shape, it would be able to borrow the dragon's might, and its power would be stronger than ordinary martial skills. However, this kind of borrowing power was only in the form of a dragon. It did not possess any dragon might. Only Chu Fumian possessed the ancient era's war dragon blood essence. Thus, the martial skills he unleashed were truly true dragon martial skills. Boom! The two long dragons collided in the air. In an instant, the scarlet fire dragon was devoured. One real and one fake. Once they exchanged blows, victory and defeat would be decided in an instant. Impossible! This scarlet flame dragon is Senior Yan Xian's strongest martial skill. Even if a wind-controlling realm warrior were to come here, they wouldn't be able to resolve it easily. They could only dodge it. How could Chu Fumian's sword energy devour the scarlet flame dragon? Countless Candle Flame's sex disciples exclaimed in shock. Their faces were filled with indescribable shock. Yan Xian had once used this scarlet flame dragon against a wind-controlling realm warrior. Even the wind-controlling realm warrior did not dare to face it head-on and could only dodge it. Such a powerful martial skill was actually easily resolved by Chu Fumian, especially when Chu Fumian was only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. Even if a 7th level body refinement realm warrior was monstrous, How could he unleash such a terrifying sword attack? If I want to kill someone, no one can stop me. After forcing Xianyan back, Chu Fengmian sneered. His figure flashed, and he arrived beside Yin Mei. When Yin Mei saw Chu Fengmian approaching, her face was filled with fear. She did not expect that Xianyan's attack would be easily resolved by Chu Fengmian. The backlash from the Scarlet Flame Dragon was enough to make Yin Xian unable to use his spiritual energy for 3 seconds. These 3 seconds were enough for Chu Fengmian to kill Yin Mei. Chu Fengmian, if you dare to kill Yin Mei, our Candle Flame sect will not rest until you die. Yin Xian roared. Yin Mei was the disciple with the highest aptitude among this batch of newcomers in the Candle Flame sect, other than Yin Xian. She was also highly anticipated by the higher-ups of the Candle Flame sect. If Yin Mei really died in the Sacred Land, it would be a great loss to the Candle Flame sect. Are you threatening me? Chu Fengmian looked at Yin Xian and said coldly. That's right. If you dare to kill Yin Mei, our Candle Flame sect will not rest until you die. In the Sacred Land, there are some seniors in our Candle Flame sect. Their strength is far from what you can imagine. Yin Xian said coldly when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Not to mention, you're only one person today. How can you be a match for more than 10 of us? If you dare to kill Yin Mei, don't think that you can escape unscathed today. Is that so? Whether I can escape unscathed has never been decided by others. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. The tip of his sword flashed, and a line of blood appeared on Yin Mei's throat. Then, Yin Mei's figure fell to the ground. Threat? Threats were useless to Chu Fengmian. What he hated the most in his life was being threatened by others. Since he had decided to kill Yin Mei, even a saint expert wouldn't be able to stop Chu Fengmian. Damn it, Chu Fengmian, don't think that you can leave alive today. Yin Xian's face changed when he saw Yin Mei's death. He was so angry that his face turned red. Disciples of the Candle Flame sect, listen up. Attack together and kill this brat. Yes. The remaining dozen or so Candle Flame sect disciples attacked at the same time. In an instant, countless flames were condensed together. Kill. Cold moon, heavenly ice. When the disciples of the Candle Flame sect attacked, a white figure suddenly descended from the sky and landed beside Chu Fengmian. A sharp icicle suddenly shot out and forced the disciples of the Candle Flame sect to retreat. It's you? Chu Fengmian's face changed when he saw the figure that suddenly appeared beside him. It was as if he hadn't expected it. The white figure was Han Yueli, whom Chu Fengmian had met at the entrance of the Sacred Land and thanked him once. Han Yueli, how dare you interfere with the matters of our Candle Flame sect? Yin Xian took a glance and also recognized Han Yueli. This brat killed our disciples today. He must die today. If you're going to stick your nose into this, don't think that you can leave alive today. No, I won't kill you today. Yin Xian's eyes were filled with lust when he looked at Han Yueli. Chapter 164. Looking at Han Yueli, Chu Fengmian was surprised. Why did the number 1 beauty of the victorious martial country suddenly help him? You don't need to provoke this trouble. I alone am enough to deal with this group of people. Chu Fengmian quietly said to Han Yueli. Although he didn't know why Han Yueli helped him, this trouble had nothing to do with Han Yueli. Chu Fengmian wasn't willing to involve others. Yin Xian's strength isn't as simple as it seems. Han Yueli calmly said. Her voice was like snow that had just melted. It was gentle, but also somewhat cold. You helped me once before. This time, consider it as me returning the favor. What? Chu Fengmian was startled. Helped Han Yueli once? Chu Fengmian had only purposely used the Battle Dragon art to kill the Heart Demon when the Saint had used the Killing Heart Demon art to disturb Chu Fengmian. The Battle Dragon art had also destroyed the heart demons of the surrounding people. Although it was said to be a help, it was actually an unintentional action by Chu Fengmian. He only did it to deal with the Chosen, but Han Yueli actually thought that he had helped her once. This favor wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. At the very least, with Yin Xian's character, he wouldn't remember Chu Fengmian's kindness. It was already good enough that he thanked Chu Fengmian. It was also the first time that Chu Fengmian met someone like Han Yueli, who actually chose to help him at this time. Chu Fengmian actually felt familiar with this character. Our ancestors taught us to repay kindness. You helped me once, so it's time for me to return the favor. Hanueli coldly said as her eyes stared at the candle flame sex disciples present. Whoever wants to kill him will have to go through me first. Hanueli, it looks like you're really courting death. If all the disciples of the cold snow pavilion were here, perhaps this young master would be a little afraid. Do you think you're a match for our candle flame sex disciples by yourself? Many ants could bite an elephant to death. Furthermore, these candle flame sect disciples all had the strength of the divine sea realm. They were not ants. Besieged by more than a dozen disciples of the spirit sea realm, even a warrior of the wind controlling realm might not be able to fight 1 against 10. One more Hanueli was nothing. Yin Xian's eyes revealed an evil thought. This young master has always wanted to have a taste of Wushang country's #1 beauty. Today, I'm finally getting my wish. Kill this Chu Fengyan for me first. Then this young master will personally deal with this Hanueli. Yes, countless candle flame sex disciples heard the order and suddenly attacked. Countless martial skills blasted towards Chu Fengyan. Brother Chu, leave quickly. You're no match for them. Mo Changhen hurriedly shouted from behind. Chu Fengyan was here to save them. Although he knew that Chu Fengyan's strength was miraculous, he was only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. How could he fight against more than a dozen candle flame sex disciples? With more than a dozen candle flame sex disciples attacking together, even a warrior at the peak of the divine sea realm would be killed in 1 move. Don't worry, just remember to stay far away. These trash can't hurt me. Chu Fengyan looked at Mo Changhen and said confidently. Mo Changhen couldn't refute such an arrogant statement. Back in the barbaric mountain range, he had seen too many legends about Chu Fengyan. This time, he subconsciously believed Chu Fengyan's words. You're about to die, and you still dare to be arrogant. A candle flame sex disciple roared in anger. Even Yin didn't dare to underestimate their combined strength. Chu Fengyan actually said that they couldn't hurt him. He was simply arrogant to the extreme. In terms of one-on-one combat, the candle flame sect disciples naturally couldn't be stronger than Chu Fengyan, who had just killed Yin Mei in 1 move. But now, there were more than a dozen of them. With more than a dozen of them joining forces, they definitely surpassed Chu Fengyan in terms of strength. Let's attack together and destroy the sea of fire. More than a dozen candle flame sex disciples attacked together and formed a huge sea of fire in front of them. It was as if no living thing could survive in this sea of fire. Seeing Chu Fengyan fall into the sea of fire, Hanueli panicked. Even she would be severely injured if she didn't die in such a sea of fire. Just when she wanted to help, Yin Xian, who was beside her, had already attacked. Little beauty, your opponent is me. As he said those words, Yin Xian also sent forth a burst of flame to attack. Hanueli pulled out her sword, and countless ice crystals danced in the sky. The two figures intertwined in the air and fought. Haha, what genius of the Martial Victory Academy's new generation, the second Crown Prince. Didn't he still die in the hands of our Candle Flame sect today? A body-refining realm martial artist is actually so arrogant. He even said that we can't hurt him. He's simply digging his own grave. Countless Candle Flame sect's disciples looked at Chu Fengyan in the sea of fire and laughed crazily. But their laughter didn't last for long. A scarlet sword light suddenly shot out from the sea of fire. The power of the crimson sword light was extremely terrifying. The 3 Candle Flame sect disciples standing at the front were instantly sliced in half at the waist. Then, their bodies were directly turned into ashes. Isn't it? You bunch of trash, see if you can hurt me. Chu Fengyan's figure suddenly jumped out from the sea of fire. The remaining Candle Flame sect's disciples looked over and saw that Chu Fengyan's body wasn't injured at all. Impossible. Even a wind-resisting realm martial artist can't be unharmed in the sea of fire. Monster. He's really a monster. He's simply inhuman. Countless Candle Flame sect disciples shouted crazily. They couldn't believe their eyes. But their shock wasn't limited to this. Suddenly, a Candle Flame sect's disciple saw the scarlet sword in Chu Fengyan's hand. Scarlet Flame Sword. It's our Candle Flame Sect's Scarlet Flame Sword. This shout caused an uproar in the surroundings. The Scarlet Flame Sword was one of the 3 divine weapons of the Candle Flame Sect. It was a weapon that countless Candle Flame Sect's disciples dreamed of. Now, it actually appeared in Chu Fengyan's hands. Since you recognize this sword, then you can die in peace. Chu Fengyan's eyes were filled with killing intent. All of you die. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan's figure flashed. He grabbed the Scarlet Flame Sword and slashed. Not good. Stop him. Chapter 165. The fire dragon was unleashed, and the scorching flames burned everything as it roared. The fire dragon unleashed by the dozen Candle Flame Sect's disciples was much stronger than Yin Xin's attack. These Candle Flame Sect's disciples all cultivated the cultivation technique of the Candle Flame Sect. Their coordination was flawless. A bunch of trash. Even if you work together, you're still trash. Break for me. Within Chu Fengyan's body, the power of the battle dragon art burst out. In the sacred ground, Chu Fengyan no longer had to hide his strength as he unleashed it with all his might. The tip of the Scarlet Flame Sword suddenly slashed towards the fire dragon. The sword slashed out. The invincible heavy sword. The huge Scarlet Flame Sword contained an extremely powerful force. Boom! A huge amount of spiritual energy trembled as a huge force swept through everything. The fire dragon was shattered by the sword. The dozen Candle Flame Sect disciples all took a few steps back as they spat out a mouthful of blood. What a terrifying force! More than a dozen divine, sea realm, Candle Flame Sect disciples aren't Chu Fengyan's opponent even when they work together. Countless Candle Flame Sect disciples shouted in disbelief. 1 against 10. Even a wind resistance realm expert wouldn't be able to do it. Even if Chu Fengyan wielded the Scarlet Flame Sword, he wouldn't be able to unleash such a terrifying force. Scarlet Flame Sword. Suddenly, countless people's gazes fell on the Scarlet Flame Sword. The Scarlet Flame Sword before them was completely different from the Scarlet Flame Sword before them. The runes on the Scarlet Flame Sword had all been reforged. The 9 new runes that were carved on it were all augmented with strength. Crazy. Which lunatic actually reforged the runes on the Scarlet Flame Sword and augmented it with strength? Is this something that a human can use? With this kid's strength, using the Scarlet Flame Sword once is already his limit. Don't be afraid. He doesn't have much spiritual energy left. Some Candle Flame Sect's disciples shouted. The amount of spiritual energy required to use such a powerful sword was an astronomical figure. No matter how strong Chu Fengyan was, he was still only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. At this level, he could at most use the Scarlet Flame Sword to strike once, and that was already his limit. Chu Fengyan's strongest sword had been blocked by them. Chu Fengyan should not have much strength left. He was like an arrow at the end of its flight. No more spiritual energy? Hearing the words of the Candle Flame Sect's disciples, Chu Fengyan revealed a mocking smile. If it were any other warrior, the disciples of the Candle Flame Sect were right. Even a divine sea realm warrior would find it extremely difficult to wield the Scarlet Flame Sword and use it once. With one sword strike, all of his spiritual energy would be sucked dry. However, this was only true for other martialists. Chu Fengyan's divine veins could replenish his spiritual power in an instant, even if his spiritual power was depleted. Chu Fengyan had already replenished all the spiritual energy he had just consumed. He communicated with the earth veins and continuously absorbed spiritual power from them. It could be said that the earth veins of the 9 regions all belonged to Chu Fengyan. It was almost endless. Even the spiritual power of hundreds of millions of saints couldn't compete with Chu Fengyan. All of you die. Chu Fengyan laughed loudly. The Scarlet Flame Sword was activated again. Another sword strike was launched. The power of this sword strike was much stronger than the previous one. A sword chi that was as tall as a person was launched. Immediately, another 2 disciples of the Candle Flame Sect died under Chu Fengyan's sword chi. Impossible. How can his spiritual energy be so strong? Is he still human? Could it be that this kid is actually a wind-controlling realm expert and has concealed his strength? Divine Sea Realm warriors couldn't wield the Scarlet Flame Sword a second time. unless it was a divine sea realm genius like Yin Xian. However, even Yin Xian wouldn't be able to wield the sword a second time so easily. Looking at Chu Fengmian's current appearance, it seemed like it was extremely easy. Wielding the sword twice consecutively was extremely easy for Chu Fengmian. All of you die. After killing the 2 disciples of the Candle Flame sect, Chu Fengmian's figure didn't stop. His figure flickered and appeared beside the disciples of the Candle Flame sect. Every slash of his sword was able to kill several disciples of the Candle Flame sect. In a few breaths of time, more than a dozen disciples of the Candle Flame sect had died under Chu Fengmian's sword. Chu Fengmian's figure moved and flew into the sky. With a slash of his sword, he separated the battle between Yin Xian and Han Yueli. He looked at Yin Xian and revealed a cold smile. How about it? Is there anyone else who wants to take Chu Fengmian's head to receive contribution points? Those trash, so what if they die? They're just wasting resources if they don't die. Yin Xian looked at the disciples of the Candle Flame sect that were killed by Chu Fengmian with a cold gaze. Yin Xian never cared about the lives of the disciples of the Candle Flame sect. Right now, his eyes were completely focused on the Scarlet Flame sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. No wonder the Crown Prince hates you to the bone and is extremely fearful of you. Your strength is indeed much more terrifying than we imagined. Yin Xian looked at Chu Fengmian and said, "But right now, you're relying on this Scarlet Flame sword. Without this Scarlet Flame sword, you're nothing. You don't even have the qualifications to fight with me." "Oh." Chu Fengmian looked at Yin Xian with a teasing smile. "This Scarlet Flame sword is now in my hands. I'd like to see how you're going to snatch it from me." "Naive brat. This Scarlet Flame sword is one of the 3 divine weapons of our Candle Flame sect. It has long been controlled by our secret technique. Do you really think that you can control it?" Yin Xian's eyes revealed a trace of greed. "Since you brought him to the sacred ground, then return it to its rightful owner." 7-colored flame rune. The 7-colored flame rune on Yin Xian's forehead suddenly dissolved. 7 colored flames suddenly appeared on his body. Under the 7 colored flames, the surrounding space seemed to be on the verge of being roasted. This flame actually faintly matched with the spiritual energy of the Scarlet Flame sword. Scarlet Flame sword. As one of the 3 divine weapons of the Candle Flame sect, you shouldn't be in the hands of an outsider. Come back. Yin Xian roared. Instantly, the Scarlet Flame sword's body trembled as if it was about to break free from Chu Fengmian's hands. Not good. Quickly take back the Scarlet Flame sword. This Scarlet Flame sword has the secret technique of the Candle Flame sect. Unless it's controlled by a disciple of the Candle Flame sect, it will be taken away by other cultivators. Han Yueli hastily said from the side. Chapter 166. With Yin Xian's strength, even if Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli joined forces, they wouldn't be his opponent. You want to take it back now? It's too late. Once this secret technique is activated, the Scarlet Flame sword will belong to me. Hearing Han Yueli's voice, Yin Xian laughed arrogantly. Little beauty, wait for me to kill this brat first. Then we can play together. Really? The corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. No one can take away the spiritual weapon in my hands. Suppress. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a word, and a dragon's aura suddenly appeared. The Scarlet Flame sword in Chu Fengmian's hand stopped trembling all of a sudden. The Scarlet Flame sword was indeed engraved with a seal, but the Scarlet Flame sword had been refined by Chu Fengmian a long time ago. Especially the Scarlet Flame sword, which had been refined by Chu Fengmian with his blood. The seal within it had been completely destroyed. Only Chu Fengmian could control the Scarlet Flame sword. Still not enough? Then I'll take action. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly, and his figure moved, immediately rushing towards Yin Xian. The Scarlet Flame sword in his hand suddenly slashed out. The moment the sword was slashed out, the surrounding space trembled slightly. This was something that could only be done by someone who was close to the wind-resisting realm. Chu Fengmian's current full-strength attack was close to the wind-resisting realm. The space trembled, and even Xian Yan's figure involuntarily retreated, avoiding the sharp edge of the Scarlet Flame sword. All right, since I can't control the Scarlet Flame sword now, I'll kill you first. Then I'll take the scarlet flame sword back." Xian Yin roared, and the seven-colored flame on his body suddenly turned into a huge vortex. Within the vortex, there was actually a huge eyeball blinking. The moment the eyeball suddenly condensed, there was an endless pressure, causing Chu Fengyan and Han Yueli to resist it. Not good. This was the brilliant heaven eye. Once you are seen by the eyes of the ancient brilliant clan's strongest, your body will be burned by the seven-colored flame, and you won't even be able to escape. Han Yueli exclaimed when he saw the brilliant heaven eye condense. The flames shot out by the brilliant heaven eye were almost impossible to escape. No matter how fast a person was, how could they be faster than the eye? The moment the brilliant heaven eye looked at Chu Fengyan and Han Yueli, two bursts of flames transformed into two fire dragons, roaring as they charged. Brilliant heaven eye? The primordial brilliant tribe is indeed powerful. However, with your thin bloodline, it's nothing, Chu Fengyan said disdainfully. Sword. As soon as the word sword appeared, a shocking sword intent suddenly erupted from Chu Fengyan's body. This sword intent was definitely much more terrifying than any sword cultivator in victorious martial nation. What? Han Yueli, who was standing beside Chu Fengyan, was shocked when he saw the sword intent that erupted from Chu Fengyan. Such a terrifying sword intent was something that even some sword saints might not be able to unleash. What kind of monster was Chu Fengyan? How could he possess such a terrifying sword intent? The sword intent seemed to have reached the pinnacle. Although the power that erupted from it did not reach the pinnacle of sword Dao, it was not because Chu Fengyan's sword intent was insufficient. It was because it was restricted by Chu Fengyan's strength. The sword intent that I cultivated in my previous life. Let me test it on you this time. Chu Fengyan laughed. Reversal of heaven and earth. Chu Fengyan swung the scarlet flame sword in his hand. A huge sword chi that was 20 to 30 meters long instantly slashed towards Yan Xian. The speed of the sword chi was as fast as lightning. In an instant, it had arrived beside Yan Xian. Bang! One of Yan Xian's arms was completely severed by the sword chi. This was because Yan Xian's reaction speed was extremely fast. If his reaction speed was a little slower, Yan Xian would have already been cut in half by Chu Fengyan. Brilliant heaven eye, kill him for me. Yan Xian's heart was filled with great pain when his arm was cut off. It made him even more furious. The enormous brilliant heaven eye in the sky also sensed Yan Xian's anger. An even more enormous flame surged out. The monstrous sea of fire immediately blocked in front of Chu Fengyan. Get lost. Chu Fengyan slashed out again with his sword. It was impossible for any other martial artist to continuously unleash such a powerful sword technique. However, Chu Fengyan possessed the divine pulse. It wouldn't be a problem for him to continuously unleash 100 of such sword techniques. Break! Chu Fengyan shouted. The sword chi cut through the sea of fire and soared into the sky, slashing at the brilliant heaven eye. The huge whirlpool was cut into two halves, and the huge eyeball within it was instantly shattered. The brilliant heaven eye, Yan Xian's strongest technique, was actually broken by Chu Fengyan. Damn it! How can there be such a monstrous martial artist? He's definitely not a human. He's already a monstrous genius. Yan Xian looked at Chu Fengyan, and his face drastically changed. The brilliant heaven eye was his strongest trump card. He revealed the brilliant heaven eye to quickly kill Chu Fengyan and seize the scarlet flame sword. But now, even the brilliant heaven eye was easily slashed apart. How could he have any strength to resist? Run. There was only one word in Yan Xian's heart. Even Yan Xian's strongest trump card wasn't Chu Fengyan's opponent. If he didn't run now, what other choice did he have? His figure turned into a fiery red escape light and immediately fled into the mountain range. Chu Fengyan, just you wait. If the seniors of my Candle Flame sect know about the Scarlet Flame Sword, it'll be the time of your death. Yan Xian roared as he hastily fled. She wished she could explode all the spiritual power in her body to escape for her life. In the sacred ground, There were some Candle Flame sect's disciples who had reached the wind-resisting realm. As long as he could find them, they would be able to kill Chu Fengyan. As long as he could escape, Chu Fengyan would be a dead man sooner or later. Don't let him escape. Han Yueli's face changed. His hand moved, and an azure sword was slashed out. Ice Lotus Sword Art? Seeing the sword, Chu Fengyan's eyes changed. He suddenly understood where he had seen Han Yueli's sword art. How can this Han Yueli know this sword art? Chu Fengyan frowned as he pondered. The azure sword turned into a string of ice lotuses in the air and turned into a sword chi that slashed towards Yin Xian. The sword slashed at Yin Xian's back. Damn it! Yin Xian was in pain, but his figure didn't stop. Chapter 167. Yin Xian turned into a streak of light and flew towards the center of the Sacred Land mountain range. The truly powerful disciples of the Sacred Land were all at the center of the Sacred Land mountain range. As long as the other experts of the Candle Flame sect sensed Yin Xian's aura, they would come to his aid. As long as any of the Candle Flame sect's disciples of the wind-controlling realm came, not to mention saving Yin Xian, they could even kill Chu Fengyan. Therefore, he made a prompt decision and hurriedly flew away. In terms of strength, Yin Xian was indeed not Chu Fengyan's opponent. The Scarlet Flame Sword in Chu Fengyan's hand had at least doubled his strength. But in terms of speed, Yin Xian had absolute confidence that Chu Fengyan would definitely not be able to catch up with him. Chase! Chu Fengyan's thoughts were immediately interrupted. His body moved, and an illusory figure flashed past, chasing after the light that Yin Xian had transformed into. Although Han Yueli's swordsmanship was important, he had to kill Yin Xian first. There must be many powerful disciples of the Candle Flame sect in the Sacred Land. Those disciples who cultivated in the Sacred Land must be extremely powerful. If he let Yin Xian go today, it would be a big trouble for Chu Fengyan when the Candle Flame sect disciples came to kill him. His cultivation had not reached the Divine Sea realm, and he did not have the ability to fight with a wind-controlling realm cultivator. Chu Fengyan could still defeat a peak Divine Sea realm cultivator like Yin Xian. But if he encountered a wind-controlling realm cultivator, Chu Fengyan could only run. He did not even have the ability to fight back. You can't escape. Chu Fengyan looked at the streak of light in front of him and sneered. The phantom movement technique was pushed to the limit by Chu Fengyan. His speed was actually comparable to Yin Xian, who was at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. The two figures were rapidly traversing through the forest. Even Han Yueli, who was at the peak of the Divine Sea realm, could not catch up with the two of them and could only follow behind. How was this possible? After a few minutes, when Yin Xian thought that he had shaken off Chu Fengyan, he was shocked when he turned around. Chu Fengyan's figure was actually not shaken off. Instead, Chu Fengyan's speed was even faster than his. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. If that was the case, they would be able to catch up very soon. Yin Xian's escape light was actually not much slower than Chu Fengyan's. However, how could Yin Xian's spiritual energy compare to Chu Fengyan's? In just a few minutes, more than half of Yin Xian's spiritual energy had been consumed. The amount of spiritual energy consumed for every breath of this escape light was a huge number. Yin Xian was using his full strength to escape from Chu Fengyan. However, after a few minutes, his speed had already slowed down. However, Chu Fengyan's speed was still as fast as before. It was as if Chu Fengyan's spiritual energy was limitless. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the two was less than 100 meters. You still want to escape? Stop right there. Chu Fengyan's eyes turned cold. The scarlet flame sword in his hand slashed out again. Scarlet sword chi engulfed the flames and charged towards Yin Xian. This scarlet-red sword energy swept through the flames. It was like a monstrous sea of fire in the sky, dyeing the entire sky red. Damn it! Is his spiritual energy something a human can do? After chasing for so long, Chu Fengyan still had such abundant spiritual energy. Yin Xian cursed. At such a close distance, it was already impossible for him to dodge. Flame of the heavens. Yin Xian turned his head, and a flame condensed in his palm. He threw it toward the sword chi, trying to disperse it. However, in almost an instant, the flames that Yin Xian shot out were scattered by the sword aura. Yin Xian was not Chu Fengmian's opponent, even when he used his full strength, not to mention the current Yin Xian, who was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He did not even have 30% of his strength at his peak. The sword Qi cut through the flames and directly slashed towards Yin Xian. Suddenly, a huge fire mark appeared on Yin Xian's body, and he fell to the ground. No, this young master is the one who inherited the 7-colored flame mark. My bloodline is incomparably noble. How can I die in such a place? How can I die in the hands of such a brat? Yin Xian continuously shouted. In the Candle Flame sect, he was a prodigy. In his opinion, in the entire Martial Victory Academy, only the Crown Prince, Ling Tian, was qualified to be his opponent. He never imagined that he would be defeated by a brat in the body refinement realm, and even be killed. Incomparably noble bloodline? Ever since you decided to become enemies with this Chu, it represented the day of your death. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile. It's over. Chu Fengmian landed on the ground and slashed out with his sword. Yin Xian's figure was instantly split into two, and a flame burned his corpse into ashes. Chu Fengmian raised his hand, and an interspatial pouch was taken out from the ashes. As a prodigy of the Candle Flame sect, Chu Fengmian naturally needed the wealth within. Yin Xian is dead. At this moment, Han Yueli, who had just caught up, said in disbelief as he looked at the pile of ashes on the ground. Yin Xian was known as a rare prodigy in the Candle Flame sect, especially after activating the 7-colored fire mark. His bloodline was incomparably noble. In the entire Martial Victory country, he could be considered as one of the top prodigies. But today, he was actually killed by a body refinement realm cultivator. If this news were to spread, no one would believe it. That's right. Chu Fengmian nodded his head and looked at Han Yueli with a smile. I still have to thank Ms. Han for your help. Without your help, it wouldn't be so easy to kill Yin Xian. No, that Yin Xian was basically killed by you. I myself know best whether or not I contributed. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Han Yueli shook his head. His fight with Yin Xian could only delay Yin Xian. The one who defeated Yin Xian was Chu Fengmian, and the one who killed Yin Xian was still Chu Fengmian. So you weren't bluffing when you said you didn't need my help. It's actually true. Looking at the pile of ashes, Han Yueli said in a daze. Previously, when Han Yueli attacked, Chu Fengmian had said that he alone was enough to deal with Yin Xian and the others. At that time, Han Yueli thought that Chu Fengmian was bluffing for the sake of his face. But now, it seemed that what Chu Fengmian said was indeed the truth. Even without her help today, Chu Fengmian was still enough to kill Yin Xian. There was no difference. Han Yueli had also heard of the rumors about Chu Fengmian. At that time, Han Yueli only thought that Chu Fengmian's reputation was mostly made up by the Martial Victory Academy. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.